Hello, boils and ghouls. RF Blackstone here with another episode of Behind the Keyboard. Today, my guest is Doug Goodman, author of the Cadaver Dog series, the Backpacking with Dinosaur series, and Wendigo Road for Savage Press, and Terrible Lizard, a memoir of my time in the police dinosaur unit. Enjoy.
I like that.
Okay. Doug, thanks so much for being on here.
It's great to be here, man.
Um,
So,
yep.
no,
No,
I
go
was gonna
for it.
say, so we've been going on about this. I was talking about Goodreads, and I'll jump into it because I
Yep,
was saying
go for it.
I've absolutely been enjoying using it, and so I use it for cataloging everything I'm reading. Some people I noticed they will go to such small levels. I'll be like sci-fi or horror, and there people will be like, well, but is it like a thriller horror, or is it monster horror, or is it like a slasher horror? And I'm like, it's horror. That's it. I think mine is like monster at the end of the book or something
Yeah.
like that. That's the best I can do with it. But I've really enjoyed that you can categorize everything you do, and I love that I keep a best of the best list, that these are like 10, 15 books, no more than that, that these are the best things to me, everybody's different, but to me, I've read it and just been like, okay, that's a really great book, or graphic novel, any of those. And what I need to do is start putting like it by year.
Mm,
2021, here's things, that I really enjoyed.
yeah.
You know, Yes, you can do. Uh, Everybody's different. I've seen there's some people who they want to be like, look, I am going to give a 5-star review to a book this year. That kind of meant to like, it has got to knock my socks off. It's got to be like a Pulitzer Prize winning, Booker Prize, National Book Award, got the Stoker, did all that. That book gets a 5-star, nobody else. I've never been like that. I actually was on a tear. Let's say in the pandemic, one of the things I was doing was reading a lot. And so I was on a tear, and it was like 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. And I think I even started, either blogging about this or writing about this on social media, where I was going, are books just really, am I just getting really lucky? I'm hitting this where I was like, even I was shocked. I was like, I'm not doing anything really less than 5, because these books are really blowing me away. But that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Well, could it be that you said that was during the pandemic, so maybe your
Right.
expectations were lowered.
It could have been. It absolutely could have been. It was just, because you're like, just give me something, man. Just feed me something. It's
Yeah.
I I don't know about you. One of the reading was one of the things I did. I was picking up cooking more. I was doing some of that. Uh, Writing. I wish I could say I was doing more writing. Uh, what had happened to me was, and I think like a lot of people, there was a series of unfortunate events that precluded me from increasing the writing the way I had thought. Oh, I'm teleworking, the way that you're not going out or anything. I'm going to write so much this year. No, I didn't write that much.
Yeah.
No more than regular. You know.
Yeah. Oh no. Same here. And like, to be honest, I had the same thing with I talked about with Lee Murray a couple of weeks ago. There's that thing here where with writers, everyone says you need to read. You need to read. If you want to be like Stephen King himself said, if you want to be a writer, you have to read.
Yeah.
I call bullshit.
Yeah.
I call bullshit on it, and this is the reason why. I like to read, and I try to read a lot, but my my mind is visual, so I always end up just watching movies. So
Yeah.
like people, a lot of people have said to me, look, when we read your book, Richard, it does kind of have that cinematic flow, especially to the action scenes, which
Oh, right.
I take that as a compliment. I really take that as a compliment,
You
and
should. Yeah.
because I mean, I've read books where the action's like, wait, I'm confused. you know,
Yeah. You're like, it sounded like 3 people just entered a small room and there's a monster in it, but that room suddenly seems really big, or that monster, wait, physics no longer seems to
uh-huh,
apply here. And
yeah,
how did that person get behind it?
uh-huh,
So it's like, I do think it's there. There is a difficulty, or I should say, it seems like it's something that's easy to do. It's easy to, you're like, oh, framing a shot should be no problem. Anybody can do that because I can see with my eyes and go, well, it's there, I'm here, and that's how this should play out. And the reality is no, especially, in some of the kind of books that we do, where it's
Yep.
like you maybe have a gun battle or, some sort of creature on one end that's charging one way and spitting goo out of the left eye or something. And you've got to be able to kind of frame all of that
Yeah.
and what's important and what, because there's always, we can think of the eye of the main character, but it's the eye of the narrator and the eye of the reader,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, okay, gonna put a pin in that because that I want to come back to that.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
what I was getting at was as far as like with the whole reading and writing, I devour movies. So for me, it's not a case of you. If you want to be a writer, you have to read. For me, it's more okay. If you want to write or create, you need to just take it all in.
Yeah.
You know,
You
and
got to absorb.
exactly, and it doesn't matter if it is a book or a movie, a TV show, a piece of art, album. If it's creative and you can take it in and you can get something out of it, that's what's important. And
Yeah.
speaking, just going back to the reviews, how important, as an author yourself, how important, or stock do you put into getting 5-star reviews as opposed to say a 4 or a 3-star review?
Yeah. I think it's one of those, once you've put your book out in the world, it's all up to them. So if they leave a review, great. If they go in there and say, this is the worst piece of trash I've ever read, okay, I mean, that is your prerogative. You went out, you got the book, you did it. You've consumed it and you have an opinion about it. That's how we do these things. I can tell you it's some of the books I've read or that I've written. I've had people who really love, clearly really they get something out of this book. And that is something that just feeds your soul as a writer,
Yep.
that you're just like, oh, look, somebody is saying they were affected by this book, even in some small way, whether this was just entertainment value or it made them see something differently. Feed your soul. And then there's people who will write a 1-star review. And sometimes I'll read and go, yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
It's usually, I think the 1-star reviews kind of thing tends to be, it's almost like that. I've read it where it's like, there's that writer in the back of my head, that real bad artist is like, you're utter garbage. You can't write worth a thing. And let me tell you about the 5 things that you did worst thing about your book. And sometimes I'll read a 1-star review and like, oh, they got all 5. Yeah, okay. So I'm not the only one who saw it. There was that, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
also the 5 things I really liked, and there's people who get those. So
Yeah. Well, see, funny enough, I don't get a lot of reviews on my books, and I'm fine with that. I
mhm.
honestly, look, if people read it and they want to leave a review, fantastic. If they don't, okay, up to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had like for the new book, The Valley of Beach, the first review for it was a 2 or 2-star review, and basically the guy gave away big plot points.
Yeah, come
and
on.
and this is a book with like a squad of Australian special forces guy, like badasses. Like if Steve Irwin was a basically was a black ops guy.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting concept, man. Whoa, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, but keep going. Keep going.
It's that against giant insects, and what this guy was complaining about in this review was basically he wanted realism.
Oh, okay.
Okay, fair enough. That's the thing. He's
Yeah.
good. That's what he wants. Fine.
Yeah, and that's probably everybody, for whatever reason, that person saw your book on the shelf or on the digital shelf, decided to read it, and it's one of those things to me that I'd be like, man, did I mess something up in the blurb, or that they were expecting realism out of this? Now, I'll tell you, Valley of Beach, I've seen the cover. It's a great cover, and it's got this giant scorpion and
Uh-huh.
all this. I'm like, realism's kind of, it's a tricky thing to say that that's the issue when you're like, okay, I feel like there's more that could be said there. It's like, well, what was? what was the little piece of realism that you felt needed to be in here, you
Yeah.
know? But certainly I'd also go and say, it's almost like you want to say, look, if you're going to put one, please don't put a spoiler. But I understand if you have to, could you at least let everybody know this is a spoiler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being the first review as well. It's
Right.
it's the one that's gonna, it's the one that's up there. It's like, oh, come on. But it's not the review that sticks with me. The one that sticks with me is from my first Severed book, and I love it. And it's this: couldn't finish, most condescending writer of all time.
Yeah. All right.
That was in 2018.
What'd you do with that?
That book came out 2018, and I still have no idea what the hell they meant.
Yeah. So I was like, you're kind of looking to go, yeah, I don't, okay.
Yeah. That's the thing. And I've always had the mentality of, yeah, I'm writing what I want to read. So if other people enjoy it, awesome. And if people don't, okay.
Right. That's it. If they enjoy it, they enjoy it. And that's what I think the kind of books you and I write, we're hoping people get something out of this, that it's go out there, you read it, you enjoy this book, you get out of your world for a bit. I'll tell you so I write a series of books called Zombie Dog, right?
Okay, I did want to bring those up because I've read the first one so far. I've got the others. I've got the others on my TBR list.
And I think I've got right here, well, Cadaver Dog. That would be book one, coincidentally.
Yep, that's
it. In that one, I remember one of the things is that that was coming up was some people were writing. They're like, man, the dogs are getting beat up and shot and gnarled by zombies and stuff like this. And it was one thing. They're like, so we really don't like this writer. And I'm like, fair. Yeah. I understand that. I'm not going to say go away from it. And so you're reading those, and there's I remember that was your first book is out. What you conceive in your mind is a series. You can see this going on, right? And there's people going, oh, we've got a major problem with this, right? And you're like, I hear you, but and this is this book came out like in 2015, something like that. So it was very easy for me to say, well, this is like the Game of Thrones of dogs. It's like I want you to know you're going to go in here and it's just we're things are going to happen to them. Don't expect that every dog gets out of here without a problem, right?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at a book where the title is called Cadaver Dog and the main dog's name is Murder, this is not going to be Clifford the Big Red Dog.
No. It is not.
There is a level of expectation, and I mean, I love dogs, and I wrote a short story where I killed a dog, and I got, I had people going, "Oh, you bastard!" So when I read Cadaver Dog, I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, the balls on this guy," because the first rule of any sort of entertainment is you don't hurt dogs. Like you don't hurt dogs and you don't hurt children.
That's right.
Now I go out of my way to break those rules because this is life. But to do a whole book where you've got all these great dog characters and you're putting them through hell,
yeah,
and to turn it into a series, I mean, okay, for starters, what's wrong with you? Second. I mean that in the best way possible because the whole point of horror is to make people uncomfortable. It is to scare people, and you take something so pure and innocent as a dog, and you do that to them. It is that sort of moment of like, okay, we're not in safe horror; we are in real horror.
Oh, absolutely, and I can tell you, it's the spoiler alert: the dog survives the book. I've had people write to me and said, I've enjoyed your books. Just tell me you're going to make more books that Murder doesn't die now. And I've been like, look, like I said, there's a series plan. I'm not going to kill him book 2.
Yep.
And I'm not going to do that kind of thing. But yeah, I tell you, it comes from, and to just go back to the realism, it comes, even though you're writing zombies and it has ghosts and there's things like that, there is a realism to it. And the realism I based it on was that for many years I worked in search and rescue, and so these are working dogs that are out there in the elements, and you're seeing it. They're getting busted up and they're getting beaten up. And the more you look at, I've seen dogs just about worked to death. You know, I've seen these things happen. You've seen the dogs' lives at risk. And if you look at a lot of police stories when they're talking with police dogs and stuff, a lot of dogs will die in action.
Yeah.
They will be killed by the person that they're trying to, take down or whatever. And so, or another big thing is they die through heat exhaustion, or heat stroke, or it gets too hot in the police car and they die. And it's a horrible thing. It's a tragedy. Every time I hear one, I go, oh. So when you write this whole book series with zombies and stuff, you're saying this is the world I know. I know of a world where I remember when I was a kid, my parents were breeders, and somebody had returned a dog that they didn't like, and the dog was prone to jumping fences. And I remember, so they returned it, and okay, here was Gretchen, and Gretchen was this lovely little German Shepherd. And then I walked out one day and to take out trash out, and there's Gretchen, and she's hung herself. She's dead. She's lying. She's hung herself because she tried to jump a fence.
Jeez.
And there was a leash on, and it wasn't long enough for her to get on the other side. But the thing was, nobody thought the leash was long enough to let her get over the fence. That was never the intention. But these things happen.
Yeah.
And so when you're writing these books, you're like, well, yeah, shit happens. And to say that the dog, and even the dogs, that they all come out completely unscathed and pure every time, you're like, that's just not what I've experienced. I would feel that I would be betraying people if I put it out that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, so you've got these reviews, and there's that challenge of there's these reviews, and you're just having to go, but this is the way I see the books. If everybody goes out and says we hate these books from start to finish, then yeah, I'd probably end up stopping publishing them. But the stories are in your head; they'd still keep going.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it must be successful because you've got 4 books out, and you are in the middle, or you're almost finished writing the next one.
Yeah, there's definitely, I'm in the process of the 5th book. It's called Murder Dog.
Yeah.
And that one, so going back, talking about the angles of the physics of a room, and how, like I said, we're very visual writers, and so we tend to write visually. This one, I'm going to tell you, this one was a very difficult book to write. I've rough drafted it, and I'm going back through it. And what made it so tough is that it's told from the dog's point of view. And dogs just aren't visual the way we are.
Yeah.
They much more rely on scent, hearing, things like that. And so it's been really a struggle, because you're wanting to kind of frame the room, right? And then you're going, well, but that's not how this is going to be seen.
Yeah.
The dog's going to be picking up on maybe trace movements that somebody does, because they're much more movement-based vision. Like the T-Rex, but not like the T-Rex. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you clarified.
Right. Every time I think of it, that's exactly what goes through. Well, their vision's based on movement. Not really. No, we're not talking to T-Rex. But there's a reason why if a rabbit or something goes zooming across the yard, your dog chases it. I was reading this article saying their eyes have, I think it's like we've got rods and cones, and they've got a lot more rods than we do, which means that they pick up on little movements.
Yeah.
So the same situation where we're like, oh, this is what would happen. You're going, well, is Murder hearing something? Is he smelling something coming out of the person? And it's in the previous book, I'll go so far as say in Ghost Dog, there's an actual interrogation that's being done. And I decided to throw in this little bit where you got the interrogation the way the humans are seeing it, but then you get the interrogation the way Murder is experiencing it, which of course words don't mean a lot to him.
Yeah.
But in it, he's pretty much figured out the answers that the guy is not going to give, by he can smell the evidence on the guy. He knows what's going on. he can kind of tell the guy is lying about something because he's picking up the fear reactions and the sweat and, things like that are going on. So it's just been really crazy to write from that point of view or lack of view, right?
Yep.
That point of smell, right?
I like that. A point of smell. That's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, I mean, so just the idea of alone of writing a book from a dog's perspective, that's, as you said, that's got to be really hard because they don't see it the way we do. Not just from color, movement, all that, but from
Right.
just height alone.
Yeah. They don't really care about so much about things that happen, above 4 feet, most dogs. And in this case, murder is not, and most dogs, we're not talking Great Danes and stuff. We're talking Labradors and Shepherds that
Yep.
you see it, it's anything over 4 or 5 feet doesn't I'm not going to say it never, but it's just not there.
Yeah.
They're much more, this kind of a frame.
Yeah.
Well, what's here?
And
it's not, ooh, what's up there?
The only time they do care about what's above is when you're holding food.
Right.
Yeah. I've lived with dogs before, so yeah, I know that as a fact.
Yeah. There's something I had to do was I was reading about dog vision. They're talking about how because there's different theories, it seems, about what colors they can actually see.
Yeah.
Right. But one of the ones I've heard is like colors like red and orange don't really pick up to them. Right. So that was something that I went, all right, go back through the book, the wonders of the computer, search on orange, search on red. And, then it's like, oh, somebody got, hit by a bat or knife or whatever. And so now they've got a red scar. And I went, check that out. Let's rewrite that a different way. Take out the red. And it was, again, it was a bit of a revelation to try to write in that way. So I'm real excited about that one coming out. But I'm not, because, it goes back to Murder's origins, which there is, he came from dog abuse and stuff like that. And so that was tough to write through. That was just,
I read your blog post from, I think it was like last year, where you do kind of talk about, the fact that this book is going to be one of the hardest you'll write because just of all the nastiness you're going to throw at this character.
Yes.
I mean,
it was tough. I don't lie about it. It's just going through that, and and I'll say, as a writer, that one of the things that originally strikes you is that whole idea of we embody these characters. So when you find an interesting character, you kind of want to pursue this. Well, what goes on here? Why are they thinking this way? Why does this go this way? But then with this, you're kind of going, all right, again, way back when I first wrote the first book, you pretty much had this story there. You knew this was out there.
Yeah.
And you knew at some point you wanted to tell this. But you're just going, yeah, it's gut wrenching and hard to write. You spend your day, like we say, usually most people, it's a couple of pages, 1,000 or 2 words, something like that is most people's thing. For me, it was more of how far can I get before I am just honestly just emotionally beat up and saying, I can't, no, that's it. I need to walk away and do something else. Go do something very escapist to get out of this world. Yeah.
So in a way, like the whole, saga of murder, basically it's extreme horror. But instead of it being against humans, it is against, animals that we all kind of collectively, we all say, yeah, they're pure, sweet, and innocent. So why the hell would you do that to them?
Right. And yet we all acknowledge, we've all watched the reality shows about, where it's, we're watching the SPCA or the vets. And so we know these things happen through these interfaces. We know this is going on. And so then you're like, well, I can't, you're trying to include these things in there. And so we know it's there, but it's just tough. I'll tell you one thing I started doing, like the last book that came out, I was having a hard time with just the advertising for it. Like, how do you write a little blurb?
Yeah.
And instead of writing a more traditional, this, this is the main character, this is the tease of what happens to him, please go buy my book. I went and I just started saying, reader beware, reader beware. I write books of, with these things. And I'll say, these are not kids' books. These are not children's books. These are not, this is what's going on in it. And talking about this next one, it's like, when it comes out, it'll be the same way. I was like, I know, like I said, it's like a cardinal sin to injure. You as a writer, I'm sure you've seen the submissions that say, we will accept short stories about X, Y, and Z, not with any sort of abuse of an animal.
Yeah.
And so you're going, when this book comes out, if people read it and they say 1 star, a dog is abused, right? Fair. Seriously, I get that. If what they write is, oh my God, I didn't know this was going to be in there, and I can't believe you suckered me into buying this book about this, that's when I'm going to feel a little bad about it. That's when I'll be like, well, so this one's probably going to start with a reader beware and say, look, I'm be honest with you. It's kind of a Homeward Bound with zombies, but also murder's origin story.
Yeah.
And kind of all wrapped into one package. And I'll tell you, you can skip it. You can skip this book and move on to the next one. In the previous book, we know murder is separated from her, and by the next book, he gets home.
Yep.
So there, yeah, you can move on if you want to. I hope you do. I put time and effort and heartache into this one, so I hope you take part in this. But by God, you're gonna know. This does have animal abuse.
Yeah.
Murder was an abused dog. This is gonna cover all those. If that triggers you in any way, if that really affects you, do not read this book. I don't want to hear a review that says Doug Goodman never let me know that this is where it's going.
Oh yeah, that's. I think those are the worst kind of reviews, where you can look at the blurb or you can look at the cover and kind of go, yeah, I know this is going to affect me. And then if you read it and then say, I didn't know this was going to happen, then it's like, are you dumb?
Yeah.
Are you oblivious to the horror genre?
Right. Oh yeah, you've seen it. It's people who it's like, oh, so your book is your horror book called The Horror of Australia. Man, why'd it have to be so horrific? I didn't like that. It was horror, and I really hate Australia. And you're kind of going, move on, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Woman, reader, move on. There's other things out there, but I like reviews that I can take something from, and whether that's makes me feel great because we're all people who want to feel great, or if it's got some constructive feedback in it, that's always good too.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you look at every bad review as being just a personal attack, you will not survive.
No, you won't. Yeah, you absolutely won't, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, no, it's just writing those is crazy. I can't wait. There'll be one book after that, and then I think I'm gonna have to take a break from it for at least a couple of months.
Probably. So, like as I said, I've read Cadaver Dog, and I've got the others in my lineup. And that's the great and terrible thing about the current state of horror. There's just so much of it.
Oh God, yes. It really is. There's so much. Doug said I've been enjoying reading so many books. For whatever reason, it seems really weird. I have taken this detour away from reading horror. I don't know what's going on, why I'm not reading it so much. I'm Stephen Graham Jones. I've been reading his. The If It Bleeds by Stephen King. I read that one, but beyond those two, I really haven't been picking up horror. It tends to be like these memoirs and other things that I'm reading, and I don't know why I'm doing that. Yeah,
probably as a, and you can call bullshit. You can say, nah, you're wrong, man. You can say that if you want, but it could be because you are in such a rough place with Murder Dog. Maybe you're like, okay, I don't want to have to read anything that's related to the horror genre. I need that palate.
You're probably right.
It's the same thing. I mean, like in 2019, I released the Book of Spy, which is a short story collection, and in
Right.
it, there's a story called The Outback, and that's the story where I introduce this dog. He's only in it for a very short time, but everyone says that dog is a real character, and then I kill it. Spoilers for and then there's another
Right.
short story called White Dress, where in the opening, literally the opening, in gruesome, extreme detail, our hero sacrifices a living baby.
Oh,
So yeah, in the same
yeah,
in the same
that's
same
horror.
in the same collection, I've broken both rules.
Right.
But writing that sort of stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, I need that distraction.
Right.
Um,
What makes you as a writer do things like that?
well, to be honest, when I wrote all 4 of the stories in the Book of Spy, I wrote those when I was going through a really rough time. So I
Mhm.
was more inclined to go just as deep and depraved and fucked up as I could, because that's what I was feeling. And I've got ideas for more stories in that universe I've created.
Right.
I call it's extreme cosmic horror, and I created, in this book you are introduced to basically like another elder, another Lovecraftian horror that's just more sadistic and twisted and fucked up than Cthulhu.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the final book, the final the story, and all these are available individually, but the final one is called Metal Apocalypse, and that's just balls to the walls. Like, basically, if you took Lovecraft and just said, okay, here you go, give him a shot of cocaine, put on Rammstein, and just let it go.
Whoa. Wow.
That was really fun to write.
I'll bet that was.
And that's the thing for me. If I enjoy writing it, I know, like, I have the rule of fun, which is if I'm enjoy doing something, I know everyone else will. So I teach English here in Mexico. So if I'm having fun in my class, they are. If I'm having fun writing a story, short or long, and I'm giggling and just going, oh, that was cool, I know the reader is going to enjoy it as well. And I mean, I'm going to revisit all that universe I've created, because it was really fun just to push myself like that. But at the moment, I'm more in a vein of 80s action horror. That's the mood
Really?
I'm in. That's the thing. The Valley of Bicho it's Predator, but just with giant bugs instead of an alien.
Right.
An Australian, and Australians instead of Schwarzenegger.
I love it. You mentioned it like last October. So my son, he's 13 now, right? And so he's at that age. He's very much he enjoys horror. That's one of the things he's really loved. And so we started busting through all the 80s horror because
nice.
we're parents and we're like, well, we're not ready to put you up with, rated R movies that are just coming out. We're not there yet. But we started, you're doing the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Alien, Predator.
Yep.
They're so far removed that you're not, you're going to get the joy of the story, and what's going on, and you'll be able to see it from different context. And it's not the jump out special effects that it was back then. You take Predator. I love Predator. But even now, you go back, you watch it, and you're like, yeah, we can do better now.
Oh yeah, like some of the effects, definitely, like his camouflage and all that. But you've got to admit, you cannot do better than Stan Winston in the '80s doing the practical.
No,
the Predator.
There was something great about those practical effects back then. It was when they started trying to mix them with other things, and it's like, I wonder about there's something about 80s horror, you watch it, it's just like I said, you're pulling these out with the slasher flicks that were going. They're much more commercial than the slasher flicks that were happening in the 70s and stuff. I almost want to say they were just fun.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say for horror. And to say Friday the 13th was fun, but yeah, it was all kind of fun. And it was just, it was really neat.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, I mean, my favorite 80s horror movie is my two, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. That's just fun. And John Carpenter's The Thing. Now,
Yeah, The Thing.
that's yeah. When you watch, like, the first time I saw it, it scared the shit out of me. Just for
Right.
just the practical effects and the paranoia, it really got me. Whenever I rewatch it, and yeah, it is a bit on a rotation, but I am a Carpenter fan.
Yeah.
I sit there and I sit there and I just go, yeah, this is a fun movie, just for everything. And yeah, it's a terrible, horrific story, and the characters don't deserve their fates. But there's just something. It has that, you can tell they're having fun making it.
They are. And I mean, when the actual thing appears and it's, like it's sliding around and pulling its head off, and there's stuff that I remember, you watch it as a kid, when you shouldn't, but you're watching it and like I said, it gives you nightmares for days kind of a thing. But now you're watching it as an adult and you've seen it probably 5 or 6 times and probably 100 times on YouTube clips, of our YouTube clips. And you're like, you see this stuff and you go, it's like, you totally get that was fun. There was something fun. You could see they were clearly enjoying, how do I mess with this head? How do I make this look realistic in that practical effect sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying. So it's interesting to me when you think of it, because now it's become more popular. Like, I should say, like things like Stranger Things that have come out that try to tap into that. What I think there's that, bit of a thriller, bit of an edge, but it's also kind of fun what they're trying to do with these things. And I just really dig the 80s horror. The more I watch it, the more it's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. And I mean, I watch movies as preparation for what I'm going to write. Just for a feel. And I watched Reanimator and From Beyond, and yeah, you could tell both of those movies. Okay, yeah, the effects are really cheesy, but you can just tell they're having a blast doing it.
Oh yeah.
And it reminds me of 2 quotes. One from John Carpenter himself, who said it's always more fun to make a horror movie over a drama.
Yeah, I bet.
Because all the blood, all the effects, all the different things that happen, everyone just giggles. And the other one is Hugh Grant. In an interview, Hugh Grant was asked, why...
Of all people, you're going to bring me Hugh Grant.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
But this is great. In an interview, he was asked, why is your entire career these light romantic comedies? You're a good actor. Why don't you go into drama? And he said, and this is what he said. He goes, it is 1,000,000 times harder to make a romantic comedy that works over a drama. And this is the reason why. With a drama, it doesn't matter how you act. It doesn't matter because it's the story that takes precedent. With a romantic comedy, if my line delivery is just off, the joke fails. If I don't give the right look in far as chemistry, it fails. That is a bigger challenge, and for me, that's what I love more about romantic comedies over serious dramas. Anyone can make a serious drama,
right? And it's a writer. It's how do you incorporate this? It's because exactly, it's like, do you go with the comedy? Do you go with the drama? Because horror is just one thing. And by God, talking about movies, if there's anything horror movies have taught us over the last 10 years, it's just there's so much more to be done with it, that so many different avenues that can go with. And it's one of those. So just talking about that. So as a writer and seeing all these avenues, do you have a preference, for like comedy, drama? I've heard you mention a couple of different ones. I don't know if you have a preference to them.
My preference is definitely more towards action comedy. Not action comedy, action horror. Action horror. I prefer that, where like creature features, zombies, and I mean, my first book ever. It is the beginning of a zombie apocalypse set in Cuba with a female James Bond.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's a very specific thing you're doing there.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. Every time I come up with an idea, I instantly go, okay, what's the elevator pitch? And I always kind of go, okay, that's it goes back to movies. For example, The Valley of Echo literally is Australian special ops doing Predator, but it's a giant bug.
And it's like, boom.
Yeah. Kaiju World is Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, is Godzilla.
I saw that. Yes.
You know,
I like Kaiju World, man. I want to read that one.
it's only 30,000 words, so you can get through it real quick. And
Yeah.
I will be honest. It pays the homage to Jurassic Park. It is totally on its sleeve,
Yeah.
and that's where for me, it's that once I get an idea, I start putting together the elevator pitch, and once I get that, I'm right. Let's get going. Like at the moment, I'm working on a book called Zombie Nazis on a Train. Extra points for if you can guess what it's about.
Please tell me that's the title.
That
Please
is the
tell me.
title. That's the title, 100%. I came up with the title, laughed my ass off, and went, "That's it. I've got to write that book." And everyone,
that sounds great, man.
Everyone has that exact same reaction. The reaction you're having right now. Everyone I tell, like whether they're authors, my friends, everyone just laughs like that because you know exactly what you're getting.
Right, and that's I love it's got that like I said, snakes on a plane vibe where it's like, all right, this movie's gonna be about snakes. They're on a plane.
Yep.
There's no subterfuge here, right?
Exactly.
That's what this is about. Snakes get on the plane. People deal with snakes on a plane, and then you got to get the snakes off the plane. I've got a feeling this story is going to go similarly.
very, very similar. Honestly, it was one of those things. When I came up with the title, it wasn't a case of doing the snakes of a plane idea. It literally was. I like writing. I like zombies, and I wanted to do a World War II set story with zombies. And I was trying to figure out how could I do it. And then I just one day, literally, it was like, what if there were zombie Nazis and there was a train that they were on, and our heroes basically were on the train. And I got the image of the cover, which is basically like a train that's the front of a train on fire, just covered in these zombies. That sort of thing. And I just kind of went, that's it. That's it. And that one.
So the zombies attack the train?
No, the train is transporting the zombies.
Train is transporting the zombies. Wow.
Yeah. So our heroes they basically get on the train. Then it's a case of, okay, zombies are a surprise. Do they focus on taking out the zombies, or do they try to take out the train? It's those sort of things. And of course, there's the escalation of grunt zombies, then armored zombies, and all this. And because it's the Nazis, everyone's going to feel so happy with seeing them all get killed.
Of course, get rid of all of them, exterminate, and they're zombies and they're Nazis. It's kind of like they're hitting all the notes of die, kill, get rid of them.
Exactly. And the elevator pitch I came up with is this: Inglourious Bastards meets Wolfenstein, and then then just that one moment from Sucker Punch where it's the World War I setting with the clockwork zombies.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's those all mashed together. Added the humor of Evil Dead 2 and John Carpenter. It's like that amalgamation.
So what is it about Sucker Punch, man? What you talk about that one part, and I find Sucker Punch it's a movie that came out like 10 years ago now, something like that.
2009. So yeah.
And generally, most people couldn't stand it. It did not do well. It did not sell well. It was horribly received by critics. I always, though, as the writer me, I've always said it's half of a really great movie. If you just skip all the parts that I think are essentially like in modern time or whatever, you're not in her mind, and stick to the story that's in her mind, this is a wonderful thing to watch. There's these women who are fighting for the Allies, and they're sent on these different rogue mission kind of things, whether it's fighting zombies or dragons or samurais with giant machine guns. It is just so balls to the wall crazy that it's just one of those things I was like, I love all that. If that had been the movie, I would have said, where's the sequel? I'm here. More of them. I'll take the sequel, please.
See, I'm a massive Zack Snyder fan. Like I'm a big fan of the guy. I love his movies. He's like visually, he's got control of the image, unlike other directors. And I remember
Absolutely.
I remember seeing the trailer for Sucker Punch, the first trailer, when they released it. I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? And then they showed a clip of the B-52 bomber being chased by a dragon, and that was the moment I just went, I don't care about the rest of the movie. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, right. And I think that was your, to steal from you, that's your Nazi zombies on a train kind of thing. It was like there's a B-52, it's being chased by a dragon, done with the modern CGI effects and
Yeah.
all that's going on. And you're like, I am just sold.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me some more of that.
And I've watched it a lot. And yeah, the modern stuff, it's okay. It's a good framing device. But
Yeah.
when you kind of look at it, here's the thing, it came out the year after Inception.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of like, okay, you got Inception, which is, that's the artistic, deep, meaningful version of the movie. And then all of a sudden you get Sucker Punch, similar idea. You're going within levels of a dream, basically. This is the big bombastic video game version. And for me, Sucker Punch is actually the perfect video game movie.
Oh, you totally see the video game. Like I said, they're with the zombies. That feels very Wolfenstein.
Yeah, the zombies.
You see the level with the dragon chasing them.
Yeah, each of those moments inside the fantasy, this is the perfect video game movie for a video game that never existed.
Yeah. You see little Zach playing his video games going, well, what if?
Yeah, that's the thing. And the other thing is also, you could look at it being his reaction to fandom. And this is where everyone, when I say this, everyone just goes, okay, now you're talking out your ass, pattern.
Well, that's what I was like. I was waiting. You stopped. I'm like, did we get by his reaction to fandom?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
So because Sucker Punch came out after he did Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
It came out after Watchmen. It came out after 300. So he's already been attacked by comic book fandoms. He's already been taken to the cleaners by comic book and movie fandom.
Oh yeah.
So think about it. You could look at it like this. Okay, I'm not saying it's the 100% way, but the way all the male characters look at all the women. Okay, that could be the studios saying, "Here's all your money, make us glossy, make us sweet." And then the character of the High Roller, played by John Hamm, that's the fandom going, "We want you to give it to us. You have to mean it, and if we don't like it, we're gonna destroy you."
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that does put it in a different context.
Yeah, especially if you look at the reaction. Okay, everyone loved 300 when it came out.
Yeah.
Watchmen came out and everyone just went, what the hell was that?
Yeah, and it was hard. Watchmen is, it's one of those, it coming out when it came out, I'm not sure people were ready for it.
Well, yeah.
Marvel and stuff, it was all starting. Putting it out now, much better. In fact, I'll go to watching, and I know it's not the Watchmen, but the one that HBO did a couple of years ago. And I remember watching, I was blown away by every single episode, and that usually doesn't happen to me where I'm like, oh, that was just solid stuff over and over. And clearly other people felt the same way.
Yeah.
I think there is something to be said about having had enough superhero stories that we're now able to take some that are a little more critical of superheroes. At the point where you've got Deadpool showing up and all his hijinks. Okay, we're beyond the origin story. Right. Yeah. We've got the boys, things like that happening.
And I mean, I've read the Watchmen comic. I didn't like it. And all the fanboys can come after me for that. I didn't like it for one reason. I read it as the graphic novel version, and the graphic novel contains all the supplementary material about the psychology and all that stuff. And I was just like, I don't care.
Right.
So when I saw the Watchmen movie, and this is the theatrical version, I'm sitting there going, that's it. That's perfect. It cut out all the shit I don't care about.
Which is writing. You take out the boring stuff, right?
That's the thing. Alan Moore doesn't know how to do that. But anyway. When they released the Ultimate Edition, where they basically put in it's like the extended cut plus the Tales of the Black Freighter into it, they make the 3.5 hour epic version of Watchmen. I watched that and I just went, that's even better.
Yeah. Right. It was like, oh, well, totally down with this. Yeah, I think it's like, again, please, sir, can we have some more? I will do another one. I am down to watch that one.
Well, he did. He has continued. He's continued doing Watchmen. We just no one picked up on it. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman,
Yeah.
Justice League. He's doing Watchmen with those
Oh, man.
characters.
When he's got Ben Affleck and he puts on the night owl looking goggles, and it's one of those, I'm like, anybody else see that?
Oh,
we all saw what happened there, right?
Ben Affleck as Batman was hands down. He's my favorite cinematic Batman.
That's the thing. For me, it's really tough I think he was the one I was most looking forward to. I'm not sure he's my favorite, but I want to put it on the edge. I'm not sure I've found a cinematic one that I've just really embraced, and
See,
I it's just hard to do it.
Well, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, because I was born in '86, so I kind of grew up watching Michael Keaton, then watching Val
Yeah.
Kilmer, George Clooney. So I've grown up watching all of it. Hell, even as a kid, before watching the Tim Burton Batman movies, I really enjoyed the Adam West Batman movie. With the
Exactly.
the bat shark repellent.
Of course.
As I've gotten older and I've delved more into the comics, I've kind of gravitated more towards the version of Batman where he's almost a psychotic asshole.
Right.
Ben Affleck.
So when
is
you're
that.
and also, so when you read the comics, and you're reading Batman, do you hear Ben Affleck's voice in your head?
I used to hear Kevin Conroy's voice.
See, it was always Kevin Conroy for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I used to hear. Now when I read it, I hear when he's Batman, I hear Ben Affleck. When he's Bruce Wayne, I hear Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
And I have the same opinion. My opinion of Batman is very similar to my opinion of James Bond, which is James Bond is not. He should not be suave and sophisticated and a ladies' man, and that he is a hardened killer on the brink of taking his own gun and sticking it in his mouth. That's what he is. Batman, he is that. By a certain point, he should be like that. And okay, Frank Miller did it with The Dark Knight Returns, and Ben Affleck, he nailed it.
I think and that's I think I've given Ben Affleck more credence than a lot of people. Very easy, just like, it's Ben Affleck, we hate it, it's sad Batman, stuff like that. I was and I understand, but the way I've seen the comics, it's based on The Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that. I was like, no, I think that's actually a really good fit. I really liked him, and I had much less of a problem than most people did. It seems like a lot of people really didn't like him in it, and I was like, I don't know what you're expecting here. He isn't gonna, in the version that they're doing that's based on The Dark Knight, we're not going to have a young 28 to 34-year-old male walk on screen.
Yeah, no, this is a Batman who, when you meet him in Batman v Superman, he's popping pills like crazy and washing him down with alcohol. He is not healthy. And I mean, when you look at Ben Affleck leading up to that movie, all the shit he was going through leading up to that movie, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, it does. It so does. Yeah. So what's your favorite Zack Snyder movie then?
Oh, you bastard. That's a hard one.
I thought, I was going to throw it out there. Because when I remember when 300 came out and loved it, and I watched the movie, then I read the graphic novel.
Same here.
And it was really shocking to me how much he was literally lifting, the storyboard right off the page. And so it made the experience even better.
Yeah.
I got to tell you though, that this new Justice League, his version of it, that's right up there at the top for me. I've said it before, it's like when I watched that one, I was expecting to have a kind of a fanboy experience, like when they say we've got a new multi-golden director's cut of Blade Runner or Predator or Aliens or any of these, and you go, I expect I will watch it and I will go, oh, that was a good use of my time. I'm glad I got to see the extra footage or it done in a shot in a different way or whatever it was. But it's not necessarily something I'm going to say, shout to the rooftops. Y'all, everybody should go watch this. You know, if you're a fan, you should. But if you're not, and you've already seen the movie, then no, don't worry about it. I've been like, this one though, it's such a different movie. It is just so different, and I'll say in so many ways, so much better than the first one. I mean that with no disrespect to Joss Whedon. I think there's been a lot of stuff coming up about about him, and if for him to be mistreating women, that's horrible.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this purely from a cinematic, the art of it, I was like, yeah, it was a decent average movie in a series of decent average movies. It was, it was clearly DC trying to do what Marvel had already done well, and it didn't quite gel. When you see the Zack Snyder version, it was just like, oh, so what it was you add an extra 2 hours of backstory and plot and really, it was just really intriguing stuff. Like, you're like, I am so invested in Cyborg and Aquaman and all all the stuff they're going through. The stuff with Superman came out so much better. The timing, the way they did it was just wonderful. The villain really strikes a chord this time. It's not just some generic baddie who shows up, threatens to destroy the world, and gets defeated. It was I see this.
You mean like a generic Marvel villain?
Yeah. It is exactly. It's like, we've seen that 100 times. We don't need to see it again.
Yep.
No, man. I don't know if it's his best. I'm not. Like you said, I think that's kind of hard to pick one out. But that is definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to be able to talk about Zack Snyder without saying how much he improved it in his version of Justice League.
Oh yeah, and I mean, see, I'm a big fan of like the Ultimate Edition. So basically, the director cut versions, where because you look at Batman v Superman, I saw the theatrical version. I just went, that was good. That was good. I enjoyed it. Everyone's tearing the shreds. I'm like, did we see the same movie? And then then they released the Ultimate Edition, which puts back in another like 30 minutes of stuff. And I'm there going, that's even better, because there are certain things they get, like the story, like the whole thing with the court case and Nigeria, Superman gets more time. Luther's plan makes a million times more sense. And I'm just sitting there going, this, same thing with Watchmen. Enjoyed the theatrical version. Ultimate Edition comes out, 3.5 hours, time well spent, a million times better.
Right.
So whenever I talk about
is that just being a writer, do you think, or is that as a fan?
Fan.
Yeah, no, you gotta ask.
When I first started watching the director cut version of Snyder's movies, it was as a fan, and now as a writer, like, I'll be honest, watching Justice League, the Snyder cut inspired me so much, and it was that sort of thing. I'm sitting there going, fuck, his daughter committed suicide. He was basically, he was going to get forced off that movie no matter what. If you believe what Snyder and his wife have said, they were basically going to force him anyway to leave the movie. He went through all that, and he still had, and then he comes out with this 4-hour epic, that you could say wouldn't need an intermission. I mean, I watched it in one hit.
Whoa, like straight through?
Yeah, all the way through.
No.
Yep.
You're good. I took like an hour break, but about halfway through.
I did it, and I intentionally said I'm going to do it in one hit, so it can just get me. And watching it, I'm there going, man, after all the stuff he went through, he came out with this. For any creative, if you ever are in a bad place as a creative, for anyone, just watch Justice League, and keep in mind what he was going through at the time.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
That's the thing for me. If I'm ever feeling like, if I ever feel depressed, or if I start going, man, why am I doing this? I'm just going to put on Justice League. I'm going to take 4 hours out of my day and watch it and just go, that's it. If he can do that, I can do this.
And it's because, there are people who it's like they go through something and they take time off and they're like, I got to back away. That's the way it's. There are other people who, and I think it's part of what Stars going through, but also as people, it's like it feeds into it. So when you go into it, you pull all that stuff in it and you put it in your art and you put it out there. And as long as you're being honest with yourself, and I know this sounds almost cliche to say, but as long as you're being honest with yourself and you put it out there, you're going to be successful with it.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And I mean, that's the thing. And what you can say whatever you want about Zack Snyder. Go for it. Say whatever you want to say about him as a director. You know, he makes the movies he wants to make. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, he has not sold out. And I mean, the other day I tried watching the Whedon version of Justice League. I got 20 minutes in and I turned it off going, no. And
yeah, I know you're like,
but the funny thing is when in 2017, when it came out, I went and saw it and I went, that was cool. I enjoyed it.
right.
And upon watching Snyder Cut, I'm now thinking, I just kind of go, yeah, DC panicked. And then they got Joss Whedon and said, look, just turn this into a Marvel movie. Spray paint Marvel, you know, take what you
did
do with
Marvel,
Avengers
and you
spray
did Marvel
paint DC.
really well.
Yeah.
And I totally get that.
And it doesn't work though, because Whedon is hopeful. His movies, his shows, everything has this thing of hope. Snyder doesn't. You know, not really. And with Justice League, and specifically Justice League, the forced humor, Joss Whedon's humor doesn't work. And people say Snyder's movies are not funny. There's a lot of humor in Justice League.
Yeah, there is. It's just a very different. It's not a knock you off the side of your head with a kind of a humor.
Yeah,
you know, it's a lot of very subtle things.
Yeah, like the scene where Diana is making tea and Alfred is, you know, let me help you. No, I can do it. Okay, but you're doing this wrong. You should do it like, you know.
Yeah, he just won't let go of it.
That's just the humor. Zack Snyder's humor comes from the characters themselves, not from a situation. Whedon is situational.
Wow, you know, I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing when, you know, he brings the Justice League to the Batcave. You know, he says, this is Alfred, I work for him. And all the individual reactions they have to Alfred and Alfred's reactions. If it was Joss Whedon, it'd be a joke, a line of dialogue. But with Snyder, the way Flash gives that little geeky wave and Alfred's like, back at him.
Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah, and then you get Aquaman walks past and goes, Alfred, this is badass. You know, it's that, you know, it's all from the characters. Like everyone says, Snyder didn't understand the characters. No, Snyder understood the characters. He knew exactly what he was doing. He
did. And you know, I'm glad because I want to ask you about this. So when, like, in your writing and talk, because like that, it's a cast of characters and it's very specific personalities. You know, that's one of the things that makes comics so great is usually there's not a subtle personality here. They're very much this Aquaman, you know, this version of Aquaman, which I do believe is the best that's ever been done. It's heavy metal Aquaman out here, and that's the way he is. So as a writer though, if you decide you're going to put in heavy metal Aquaman, keeping that straight throughout an entire book, it's one of those, when you see it on the screen, it seems like, this is no problem. It's easy because he's heavy metal Aquaman. He's just going to say something like badass or I dig it or whatever, right? But when you're writing it, that's very different, you know?
Yep.
I don't know about you. One of my habits is that sometimes I'll have that point where you're going, and it's that whole editing and you're going back through your drafts and stuff and you realize that heavy metal Aquaman just sounded so unheavy metal. Just as a balls, you know, out there experiment. Just, he sounds very different. It's like, okay, so now I've got to redo the dialogue here or the way he behaved or whatever it was. You know, the way Wonder Woman is presented, you know, very different. And it's a very specific to the way Wonder Woman is supposed to behave. You know, the way she acts, the way she talks, all of that comes into play. And so when you're writing, I found that it's one of the bigger the cast gets, you know, the harder it is to make sure you're maintaining all those separate personalities.
I get that. And I mean, most of my stories is usually like one main character and that's easy. But with the latest one, the Valley of Beecher, and even with Zombie Nazis, it's a team. And
that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't have problem with keeping everyone. I don't do like, like I know some authors. I don't know if you do this, but some authors who do a complete background. They write the background. They write the whole character.
Oh yeah. I've
No.
it. No, in general, no, I don't do that.
Yeah. And what I kind of do is I kind of go, okay, once again, taking it completely from the idea of movies, I go, okay, if this was a movie, who would be playing these characters? That's how I kind of go.
Right.
And then I will go, okay, so this guy, for example, the main character in Valley of Bicho, the leader of the squad, he is, a badass.
Right.
And I kind of, okay, all these guys are Australian, fine. That doesn't come into it. That just only comes into it for certain slang and expressions they're going to use.
Yeah.
But the character, okay, it's Snake Plissken. It's solid.
Yeah.
It's Solid Snake from that. It's Kurt Russell.
And that's what you're seeing. And so when
that keeps it.
It helps you to categorize it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, for example, if I'm going to write, say, badass heavy metal Aquaman, it's going to be okay. I'm going to write the heavy metal character who's an actor or even a musician who just personifies heavy metal.
Yes.
And then that keeps it going all the way through.
What I run into, the problem I run into is I try to keep it usually when I'm starting, because I'm not someone who plots out the entire book. I've done that before. Sometimes it works, but I think the more I write, the more it's like I can keep it much better in track in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm writing it though, what I'll find is that the character at the start of the book over here is not who they are over here.
Uh-huh.
And it's because I'm learning about them. And so one of the main things that I have to do in a first or a second draft is that there's character, if not your main character A or B or C, but maybe it's character D, who I'm like, oh, I thought character D was this. They're really not. And so now I've got to rewrite the book, not the whole book, but rewrite the character in that book. Yeah.
See, here's the great thing, and this is going back to the talk of reality. We are not one note. Humans are multifaceted. So I've had that thing where I'm writing a story and all of a sudden my main character turns into this. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go back and rewrite everything to be this new version. What I'm going to do is drop in little moments throughout it that does the lead up to this change. Because that's what we're like. We do kind of put on fronts. We do act certain ways, and then something might happen and that just goes completely. And
Right.
So for me, I kind of go, okay, if my character is this, and then all of a sudden he's becoming something else, I'm going to set that up. I'll just quickly go back and drop in those little moments. Because if you got a character who's one note the entire way, no one's going to believe that.
Yeah, they've got to be pretty. They got to be pretty far back in the background. They cannot be a major character and have one note.
Yeah, exactly. And in Valley of Bicho, every character, even the villain, because there is a human villain, they each have, they've got their kind of characteristic, their trope that they follow. But there are those moments where they do show humanity.
And that's an important thing. I'm with you. Yeah, it's like when you're doing these, if you again go back, if you're doing the 80s kind of version, you can often go with the villain who just wants world domination because he's an evil villain. But one of the things that we've developed in there, and it's doing the reading and stuff, and you're going, no, it's a lot better if we can see their point of view.
Yep.
If it's, you got this shade of gray. Now, sometimes, depending on how escapist it is, it's great to just have a mustache twirling villain who's just going to choose the worst thing imaginable every time.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're doing these and you're like, okay, I've got this horror book or whatever, and, action horror, and I've got this monster, but often, I don't know about you, often the monster isn't the villain in the true sense of a villain. It's not like Dracula kind of a thing. It's usually the villain is another human agency or a human that's trying to influence the situation, right? It's that whole, it's not the person, it's not Godzilla, it's the person who wants to use Godzilla to their own way, or, it's that kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, two examples of that. Okay, Valley of Bicho, the drug, like our heroes they've captured a Mexican drug lord, and they're going to transport him out of the they're going to extradite him. So okay, that character, the drug lord, that was going to be your stereotypical, over the top version of
Right.
of a Mexican drug lord that we all kind of expect. And then as I was writing it, there were those that they got to a point, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he became human. I was like, okay, I got to go back and fix that and drop in those more human, those little moments where you get the feeling, this guy's real. Now, he could have just been your straight mustache twirling, cocaine sniffing Tony Montana character, and that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But then all the giant insects that they fight, they have to become the main villain, and they're not. They're an obstacle because they are animals, just doing what animals do. And it's the same thing between Steppenwolf in Whedon's Justice League and Snyder's version. Whedon's version, mustache twirling villain.
Oh, absolutely.
Snyder's version, you know exactly what he is doing, why he's doing it. You're there.
Oh yeah, and we're all down with it from that stand. It's one of those you can if nothing else understand it's his redemption arc.
Yes.
He screwed up in the past with other planets. He's trying to prove his worth to Doomsday and curry favor, or Darkseid. Thank you. And try to do that and try and get on his good side. And we've all been there where it's like you've messed something up and you've soured a relationship and you're trying to improve a relationship and build it back. So now, even though we don't relate with the idea of destroying a planet, we do side with that desire to make amends.
Yep.
And when you put it that way, now Steppenwolf is gone from just any other bad guy villain to he's a real breathing individual who we get why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah. And what you just said, it's his redemption arc. That entire movie is about redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Batman's seeking redemption for wanting to kill Superman and failing him. Diana is looking for redemption because she's been hiding all these years.
Yeah.
Aquaman is looking for redemption because he has just turned his back on everyone. Not Cyborg per se, but Cyborg's father is looking for redemption.
Yeah, he's definitely,
Barry is looking for redemption.
To a certain extent, Cyborg, maybe not redemption, but it's redemption. It's he's looking for that. It's not a redemption, but it's he's a person who felt like he struggles with his father, and then he's trying to build that relationship up.
Yeah.
Again, like others, he's going through the same issues. And that makes him so much more relatable than the version that was in the Joss Whedon one.
Wait, was he in the Joss Whedon one? I don't remember that.
And that's one of those. That's what I say. So the answer to the question of how does DCU do what Marvel does is to say, ignore all the people who said your movies are too long. And that's hard to do because Lord knows I was one of them too, going, man, this is a long movie. Ignore that, double the length of your movie and do one giant movie, right?
Yeah.
They essentially did Infinity War and Endgame in one swoop. That's what it is. I've told people, it's like, you can watch it for about 2 hours or so, right? And it gets to the point, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything because this is all in the original movie too. There's a point where the Justice League without Superman fights Steppenwolf, gets their butts handed to them, and they come back and they realize we got to get Superman.
Yep.
And you could totally end it right there and say that was the first movie.
Yep.
And the second movie, which is I think then an hour and a half long, is just bringing back Superman and fighting the villain, saving Earth.
Yeah, and that totally works. And I mean, that's the other thing between the two versions of the movie. In Whedon's version, I kind of didn't like the fact that Batman says we have to do this. I didn't quite believe that. Whereas then with Snyder's version, they all come to the same conclusion.
Oh, I like that the way it's handled so much better.
And I mean, the future Nightmare World montage.
Oh, the payoff for it is great.
No, I think if I'm kind of excited for the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. Kind of excited, but I think what DC should do is just say to Snyder, okay, look, every couple of years you bring out another 4-hour epic in your Justice League movies.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things you talk about the pandemic, and again, this just hit at the right time where I've been looking and going, okay, I really am seeing Warner Brothers and their decision to say we're going to release everything in 2021 straight to HBO Max. We'll put it out in theater as well, but we're same day it's going to HBO Max and you'll have it for 30 days.
Yeah.
And that has paid off for them, if in no other reason than the fact that I know we keep saying in my house, well, keep it because there's going to be another one.
Yeah.
Everything's been something enjoyable. And I'll say, I'm not sure I would have gone to see all of these in the theater that they put out, but it being in my home where it's safe from COVID and stuff, put it on. Guess what we're doing tonight? It's Justice League. I'm spending 4 hours with Zack Snyder and everybody else. We're doing Justice League. Just, a week or two ago. What are we doing? Well, it's Godzilla versus Kong. We're watching this. And that one, I mean, you talk about escapist fun.
That was perfect.
It was. And I've said this before. I think I remember watching movies like the Brendan Fraser version of The Mummy, and people saying, "Oh, that was a horrible movie," and then a couple of years later, them saying, The Mummy 2 has come out, and that's an okay movie. It's not a classic like the original Mummy they did a couple of years ago, and you're like, "You mean the one y'all were all trashing?" And I think there's that conflict of it's just good popcorn flick kind of stuff. Godzilla versus Kong isn't going to change the world. It's not going to change the way you view the world. No. No one's going to say, well, this one is the great movie that was done this year. We all need to, this is it. There's crazy plot holes and weird plots and stuff that just seems to happen just to happen. But it's just fun.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, I think the movie for 2021 for me, the movie I'm going to say, that's the movie for 2021, Snyder Cut.
Yeah. Give me Snyder Cut, give me Godzilla versus Kong, and we're good.
Well, we got Matrix.
I can go cerebral on one, and I can just get some popcorn for the other.
Yep. And then later in the year, they're dropping Matrix 4.
and Mortal Kombat. They're bringing back Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. Like, Warner Brothers is they've just gone. Yep, this is it. They. And I think if every couple of years they just said, yep, here's another 4-hour Zack Snyder epic.
Yeah. You just put it out. Yeah, it's we've got Justice League 2 now. And like I said, Justice League 2 Nightmare. And I'm like, I am down, right? Yeah. I know what I'm doing that night. I want to see this story.
Oh yeah.
By God, you had me when they started going. It's great movie. Seriously, the Justice League movie that Zack Snyder is a great movie. And then to end it with that little, God, was it 5 lines between Batman and Joker that just made me go, huh? Give me that.
Yeah.
I want that one.
Yeah. And I mean, okay. The Dark Knight was great. Heath Ledger, great. But that interaction between Joker and Batman in the Nightmare World, that kind of hit on a level that they only get in the comics or the animated movies.
Yeah. Right. And that's where it was like, oh, please give me more.
Yeah.
I am so down for that next movie that it comes out. So it'll be good. If they decide. I've heard that he's very adamant that he's this is one and done and he's moving on.
Well, yeah, because he's got Army of the Dead, coming out May 21. So he's doing Army of the Dead. There's the animated prequel to Army of the Dead he's doing for Netflix as well. So I think Snyder's like, okay, right now I'm focused on my zombies. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
if DC went to him and said, look, we'll give you the money, you'll have complete creative freedom. You do your 4-hour movie. They want it. I'm pretty sure if they waited enough time and said to him, this is the deal, and it'll be just like how you just exactly like with your Snyder Cut, we will not do anything to it. You've got complete creative freedom. I'm pretty sure he would say, okay,
Right. I think so too. And it's, there's never underestimate the power of a big pile of cash.
There's that also. I mean, part of the thing, like in the lead up to the Snyder Cut being released, I was watching a lot of interviews with Snyder, and the thing that kept coming across was just how much he was in awe of the fan base getting behind him to get to have this happen. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure if it, like with the cut, restore the Snyder Cut, and not restore, it's restore the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he will at some point. He'll be like, yeah, I owe it. I owe it to the fans who have stuck behind me throughout everything. I owe it to them in a way to finish the story I've started. And
that would be good to get. I'm with you. I would really like to, but I was thinking about, put it in this context. One of our publishers approaches you, and as much as we all love all our books, we also know that some books are better than others.
Yeah.
It just goes without it. And I'm not going to ask you to call out. I'm not going to ask you, well, what is your worst book? I think that's one of the horrible things you can ask a writer is, what is your worst book?
My first book.
Huh?
My first one.
So, okay. So since you throw it out there, I was like, your first one, publisher comes to you and says, man, we're going to, more money than you've ever made on any of your books, and we're going to give you that as an advance to create the sequel to that book that you think is your worst. Would you be willing to do it?
I've already written the sequel originally, because the first one is the zombie apocalypse in Cuba.
You're hurting my argument here, man. Stop that.
Because I was but just to give you context, when I wrote that first book, I already had an idea for a trilogy. And
right.
I wrote it, and I was so fucking arrogant. I wrote it. Severed Press said yes, we'll publish it, and I started writing the sequel. And I wrote it, and I sent it to them, and they said thanks, but we base sequels on how much is selling. I was like, oh,
yeah.
So if
your book's got to sell a lot more.
So if they came to me and said, look, here's like $10,000 advance, I'll be like, let me just quickly reread it.
Right.
And
I can have it to you tonight, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So, as you said, yeah, for me, my worst book already has a sequel written, which is that sort of.
When you write, do you write with a sequel in mind?
No. Well, yes and no. That's a contradiction for you. Basically, I write with the idea, okay, this is a one and done, but I kind of go, okay, if it sells enough, and the character and any who survive are good enough characters, and there is a fan, people want a sequel, I will go, okay, I know I can do it. I won't need to retcon anything, but I know I can, write the opening will be that sort of thing. Okay, yep, it explains. Either it picks up right where we left off, or it's say a little bit after. Once again, the Bailey Bicho, it's a standalone book, but those characters, I know I can write more more missions for them to go on.
Right. So it's kind of like some of our other fellow authors, they've done it where it's like, well, I'll just take this group and it'll be in different cryptid or a different monster that they fight.
Exactly.
So because I'll tell you something, I don't really do it as much now, but something I used to do, and I just thought it was a neat exercise to try, was whenever you read something or you watch a movie, and it's much easier to do, I think, because we think in sequels for movies. So it's whatever that movie is, you sit there and you ask yourself two questions. One, what would you do differently? I'm not going to say better, but what would, as a creator of art, you're seeing this art, what would you do to this art, right? And so even with something, if you take the new Justice League, the question would be, well, what would you do differently? Is there something that you would have done that he did not do? An easy one that just because it's a criticism that's almost a joke, is for a lot of people, they've said, well, if you take out all the slow-mo, it's a 3-hour movie, you know? So I'll just throw out there. Okay, so you take out the slow-mo, right? Or you change Mira and you give her accent, change the accent to, I guess, the American accent that she uses in Aquaman, right? So there's some easy continuity things I think say, but okay, but would you have changed the arc of any of these characters?
I think the only thing I would do differently, and honestly, it would make it longer.
Well,
I would spend more time with resurrected Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that because everyone has an arc except resurrected Superman, and I kind of get, and I know that's for a reason, because at the time, if Snyder got his 4-hour release back in 2017, he definitely would have done his sequels where we get the rest of that arc.
Right.
But I kind of want to. I would spend more time with Clark, because he takes off with Lois. They're at the farmhouse, then they're in the cornfield, and then he's talking to Alfred. I want a bit more character. I would spend more time with him as he's reawakening, as he is becoming himself again. And then I want the conversation with Alfred. I want to see how Alfred interacts with a god.
Yes, they leave that out, don't they? Yeah. It's like, oh,
I would add that, and honestly, I could probably write, just if you give me just this element, I could probably write another 30 to 40 minutes worth of material for that guy, because also the scene where he goes into the Kryptonian ship, and he's looking at the suits, and and the great voiceovers from Russell Crowe and Kevin Costner and all that, and you can see the internal workings of him getting to the decision of, this is the real me, because that's what it is. Him putting on the black Superman suit, it's not the black Superman suit is so cool. It is literally this, because the line of dialogue is, show them who you really are and then fly.
Right.
That's the real Superman. I want to spend more time with getting to that point.
And and I like that, because that is a fair criticism, and of course, criticism being, we know you've already got 4 hours. You can't turn this into a 5-hour movie just to center on Superman. I could see that, but I like that. That's something that. So that's the first question: is what would you do differently? The second question is always, what would the sequel be?
Well, okay, the sequel.
What is it?
Okay, for me, the sequel to Justice League, it's Darkseid comes back. Okay?
Right.
That's the thing. But we are the first half of the movie, we're with Darkseid. That's it. The first half, we're with Darkseid, and you're just him, Desaad, Granny Goody. I think that's she was saying, you're with them. You're getting to know them. And you do it for maybe the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie. And then we do the jump cut. We do the jump cut to the Justice League, and Superman. He's he's being black suit Superman. He's now the hopeful one. He's doing what he is doing. He's proud of it. He doesn't question it. He's not doubting the Justice League are doing that. And Martian Manhunter comes in and says, "He's here," and the attack starts.
Yeah. and that's great. And I think that's it. As a writer, it's, you look at this and say, well, we're in such a sequel universe mode. I think it's important, whatever it is, that you look at it and you critique it, as part of your critique, that you're saying, well, what would I do differently?
Yeah.
No matter how good it was, and what would that sequel be?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know exactly, if like for whatever reason, if Warner Brothers came to me and said, look, we want you to do it, or just write it, the sequel ends with the death of Lois Lane.
Yeah.
That's the end of the sequel. And then the third movie, it's the full nightmare world with, we're already in the nightmare world. We start with the death of Wonder Woman. And the end of that one, it is Flashpoint Paradox.
And that's you've got it. That's where it's, how do you come up with this stuff? Where do you go? What's the next story?
That's it. You do your 3 Justice League movies, and then the next movie, it is, you just call it Flashpoint. That's all it is.
Yeah. And you're covered with it.
Yep. And then you reset the timeline like they did in the DC animated universe.
Mhm.
Reset the timeline so you can bring in a new Superman, a new Batman, a new Wonder Woman. You can do that. And it's logical in that sense because in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, you've already set up the time element with Flash reversing time. You've set it up perfectly.
So what do you think? So you talked Superman, and it's about. So do you have a favorite DC character? One that you particularly are fond of?
I've got two. And lately, the second one is overtaking the first. So the first is Batman, naturally.
Mhm.
And the second is Constantine.
Yeah. Wow, not everybody says that. I dig that. That's a great answer. But
and it's funny. I came to Constantine at the same time I came to Hellboy because many years ago in Australia, at the movies they would do movie marathons where you could get just 3 movies. And this was the best marathon I think I ever went to. Underworld, Hellboy, Constantine.
Oh yeah.
Hellboy was number 1, Underworld was number 2, Constantine was number 3.
Well, that's your horror action right there. It's just an entire day of horror action.
So Hellboy introduced me to both the comic and Guillermo del Toro. Then Underworld introduced me to the awesomeness of Kate Beckinsale. and that's just a great, fun, true popcorn action horror movie. It was great. And then in Constantine, I was just like, that was great. There was nothing in Constantine I didn't like. Like Peter Stormare as Lucifer, Tilda Swinton as Gabriel. Everything about it worked perfectly. And I was like, okay, what? And watching the credits based on the DC comics, I need to research.
Right. You're like, what? Yeah. So then did it just totally blow your mind when you saw that he's this blonde guy that looks more like Sting than Keanu Reeves?
Well, because when I went to my local comic book shop, I said, Constantine, they said, here's the trade paperback you need to read first. And on the cover, he's blonde. I just went, okay. I opened it and I started reading and I was like, I'll take it. It hooked me. It was great. And I have this thing of, I got this opinion, and it only started relatively recently, and it's this. In comics, we have no problem with characters being redone, new personalities, a new look. We've got black Superman, Korean Hulk, all that sort of stuff. We get all that, and in comics,
and they're all great too.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. And in comics, everyone is like, awesome, I accept it. But in movies, you change it, and everyone thinks, "Oh my God, you're raping Superman by changing this thing," or you can't have that. Why is there the double standard? It doesn't matter if the character is still the character. It shouldn't matter how it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it exactly.
So for me, Constantine, Sting, Keanu Reeves, the character is still the same. Yeah, Keanu Reeves' character is a little bit more subdued and more serious, but that's because after you read the Constantine run, when you get to that point of his life with the cancer and all that, it makes sense he's Keanu Reeves.
Right. He's much more jaded.
Yeah, and it's the same thing, like I've had the discussion with many people about the 2019 Hellboy. Okay. To me, that's...
You liked it.
Yeah, to me, that's perfect action horror. I've read the comics.
I struggled with that one, man. I wanted to like it. And
okay, unfortunately, we're in that age where studios get so afraid of things, they will butcher it. And yeah, they did chop it up. They did mess with it. And I went in going, okay, I know the history. I did enjoy the Del Toro movies a lot. I enjoyed Ron Perlman as Hellboy. I really enjoyed those. But there are certain things about the 2019 one that I just kind of gravitate more towards to. One of the big things is Ian McShane. You put Ian McShane into a movie, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
And the interaction between his version of Broom and Hellboy, I was laughing so much. The the design of the monsters when the Hellspawn come out, that was great.
Oh.
That was great.
Oh,
yeah. See,
and in fact, they really were like basic. Like they were really going back to the comics. That's one of the things Guillermo del Toro. He really didn't. It's one of those interesting ones where he didn't really go to the comics
just in the
way
movie.
that he could have. The first movie did, but even then, it was more of, and he. I always feel like I say, if you read Hellboy comics, they're not done in a traditional sense.
Oh no, they are.
So it's hard. There is not that traditional 3-story arc that you're going to get that covers over, let's say, 20 to 50 comics, and then you're there, right? Okay, so that was the whole story. It's more of like, well, here's what was happening at this time, and now we're going to put in where he's encountering this animal or this monster. Oh, and here's this other story that's really about the monster, and Hellboy just kind of shows up for a little bit of it. And they're really captivating. They're really interesting. But so what I'm saying is, so Guillermo del Toro to not take from the comics like that made a lot of sense, right?
It does.
To me.
And I mean,
but the 2019 really said, we're going to take some of the storylines and try to be faithful to the storylines and the characters that came to it. And I liked that. I really appreciate him fighting the giants and stuff was just great. And it just works. And from the acting standpoint, I say, I like Ron Perlman, sorry, with his version. Loved it. I really did. But the new one, I dug that. Who else would they play?
Yeah.
Who else would do that? You know.
And the other thing is, you look at the age differences, not of the actors, but the characters. Like in Del Toro's Hellboy, he's been doing this for a while. He is grizzled. He is, he's used to it. David Harbour is still his version. He himself in the interview said, my version of Hellboy is a teenager. And you hear that, you just go, makes sense. It totally makes sense that he would be pissed off. He would be, like a kid. And I think one of the biggest problems with the 2019 Hellboy movie was the fact that it was the fandom. Everyone was like, you cannot do a third Hellboy movie. It's got to be Del Toro. The fandom was sucking Del Toro's cock so hard. And Ron Perlman's cock.
They really wanted that one.
And I the first Hellboy movie, I enjoyed it. The second one, to me, 100%, that's a Del Toro fantasy movie. It is 100% a Del Toro fantasy movie.
Yeah, you really don't find.
There's nothing.
Good luck. Good luck finding the connection to the comics.
Even
it feels very much in that world, but
Hellboy,
no, it's
come on. Hellboy is not Hellboy. You would never see Hellboy singing a song with Abe while getting drunk. Hellboy would say that Hellboy would slap Abe and say, "Get the fuck over it."
Right.
That's the thing. And I appreciate those two movies for what they were and what Del Toro wanted to do. I appreciate it. But there was no way he was going to get the third movie.
Right.
And it makes total sense. Okay, think about it. You're going to do a Hellboy 2. You want to make it an R rating. You want to go off the comics. It makes sense. You get Neil Marshall to do it.
Yeah. No. You go with Neil Marshall. He's going to come in here. He's going to do what he does.
Yeah.
And man, all I can say is, it was very different. It was just very different. And you're right. People did not respond to it well, which is unfortunate to me always, as someone who enjoys seeing these things come alive on screen. I often see a movie like that one where it feels like first take didn't quite do what people wanted, but you see the bones, the architecture of this, and some of the people they've chosen and some of the direction they're going. You're like, I would have loved to have seen more of this. But that's different, as a fan. I'm like, sign me up. I'll take some more. David Harbour as Hellboy. Yes.
Yeah.
Give me more of that.
Yeah. That. And Mila Jovovich as Nimue was. It's Mila Jovovich.
I know.
Perfect. She was perfect for the role. And
yes.
The way they did Baba Yaga, the way they did the giant fight, the pig, was it the brownie? The big brownie.
The fact that they had Baba Yaga in there was enough. I was like, oh, wait. I remember seeing that in the trailer and going, Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
You got Baba. I am down.
Yeah, and
I will
when
be there.
and when Hellboy grabs Excalibur for the first time, you get to see the future, what he could end up
Yes.
becoming. You just sit there and go, oh yeah. And I mean, I didn't see it at the cinema. I didn't get to chance, so I saw it in my home. My dad went and saw it, and they saw it at the cinema. And he told me, I said, okay, what do you think? And he just goes, you're gonna love it. That's all he says. He says, you'll love it, Richard. and I'm like, okay. Sat down, started to watch it. The opening sequence with the history of Nimue, the great narration from Ian McShane. I'm just sitting there going, okay, I'm grooving. Once we hit the vampire fight in Mexico, I'm just there going, okay, I'm getting more. The giant fight did it. Once we hit the giant fight, I'm just there going, I mean, this is my jam.
That giant fight was just off the wall. I had been looking forward to it, and it was such great payoff. Him and I remember the wild hunt and everything that's going on with it, and them dressed like knights and stuff. Oh, just delicious, wonderful stuff to watch.
And
yeah,
I'm pretty sure like both Harbour and Mila Jovovich both said this when the movie came out and everyone tore it to shreds. They both said this. We had the expectation, not the hope, but the expectation that probably in say 5 or 10 years, people are going to start re-looking at it and going, yeah, actually, it's really, it'll become one of those cult classics, and it's got that feeling. It's got that vibe of, it's not right now. No, in the future, it will be.
And that's the thing. I think that's what happens to a lot of them. It's when it comes out, there's that initial reaction to it, but there's also, there's a rewatchability factor.
Oh yeah.
There are some movies that are great movies, and they are wonderful, great movies, and I acknowledge that. And when I saw it, it was a tour de force, and you're just like, I am so moved, and this is a great movie, but I don't watch it again.
Yeah.
Then there's other movies which, like I said, you take the Hellboys, the Constantines, you brought in Underworld, I'll say the Mummy, some of these action horror ones, the latest with the Godzillas and stuff. It's like you watch and you rewatch and you rewatch, and it just becomes part of your story as well. It's like, oh, I watched Kong Skull Island this weekend again, and it was great. I saw this and I like that part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Watched Hellboy, watched this. It becomes it, and then they start to get this attraction that there's that. It's just you got to have that watchability.
Yeah.
Not every movie has watchability.
And honestly, since watching Hellboy 2019, I've not revisited the Del Toro versions.
Really?
Yep.
Because that's where so this one has the rewatchability for you. It's like this is the one that you go back to.
Yeah, it is. And the Constantine, same thing. I've watched the Keanu Reeves movie a lot, and the TV series that they came out with, with what's his Matt, I think it was Matt Ryan who played him in the police procedural version. That's the thing. Okay, that version of Constantine, he's building up to the Keanu Reeves version.
Yeah,
the timeline is there.
He is, but for me, it's like I know my wife and we got. I don't want to say once a month, but especially with stream, once every couple of months, that Constantine with Keanu Reeves is on.
Yeah.
And it's the casting, like you said, was so excellent. It's just endlessly watchable. It's got great dialogue in it too.
Oh yeah.
And just everything that happens in it. Oh. So bring back to writing. For you, characters, dialogue, plot, do you prioritize any of these?
Depends on where I am in the process, and I thought I was supposed to be asking you the questions.
It's a podcast. We all talk.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. So when I'm outlining, I prioritize the plot when I'm outlining. That's the main thing.
Right.
Once I get the plot done, and when I'm plotting, I also work on character. Not 100% on the character. It's more like figuring, okay, if this ever got made a movie, what are the personalities who would be playing them? That's what I work on. When I'm writing, because once I get the plot, like for example, with Zombie Nazis on a Train, I had to outline that sucker about 10 times to get it to a point. And once I know it's set, once I'm happy with the outline, I'm like, okay, that's it. We're going. and I don't stop until I'm finished. And throughout that, it's a case of, okay, because each outline, a chapter is like maybe 1 or 2 sentences long for the outline.
Right.
And that way I can still have the fun of discoverability. All I know is the chapter starts here, the chapter ends here. I get to have to now fill in the blanks. And that's where all of the character development, it becomes 2 things. The priority becomes character and dialogue at the same time.
Right.
And then there'll be a chapter where it could be 1 line. Like, for example, Zombie Nazis Are Trained. There's a chapter where it all says zombie attack. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And then the priority becomes the action.
Mm-hmm.
So it does.
And that's, don't say, and that's where it's so you kind of, it does sound like you prioritize.
I do prioritize, but it does depend on
it's the
where I am in the story. So
Yeah.
so the beginning of a story, I prioritize mainly just character development and character.
Right.
Once I get to, and then I get to a certain point where and as I said, I do have this thing of, okay, if I get bored in a certain, like, writing a part of a book, I'll go, okay, I need to make it exciting for me. The door crashes open and a 3-headed asshole monster comes in. Now I'm excited. Asshole. What the fuck?
That's better than the 3 asshole headed monster or something. Yeah. Yeah. Workshop that one.
Hey, all you gotta do is say Lovecraftian horror, everyone buys it.
Right.
But yeah, it is that sort of thing where I do like, depending on what sort of chapter I'm writing. If I have a chapter that is solely character development, then it's all about the characters and the dialogue. If I have a chapter that is going to be more action based, then I'm just going to focus on the action. If there's a chapter where it is going to be more plot based, which I try to avoid because that gets boring, I will then go, okay, I need to have my characters or something interesting happening in the background.
Right. No, I totally get. See, for me, I can have a basic plot, right? Here's, like I said, nowadays this is what I want to happen in the book. But like I'm working on a short story right now, and it was like, I really did a lot of just sitting here and staring at the screen until the characters started to lock in. Once those characters come in and I get that sense, there's usually that click of who they are. And it's like, okay, now the behaviors, the personality, the dialogue, all that's going to happen. The plot is usually just kind of a, I know I want to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And sometimes I also know I want to do something a little different, a little twist here at this point. I know there's something's going to happen there. But how do I get to those points is often defined by the characters. Yeah.
No, I get that. And that makes perfect sense. And because, I mean, it's happened to me. I know it's happened to you. It's probably happened to every author in the history of the world. You have okay, I know what needs to happen in this scene or this chapter. And then all of a sudden your characters have done something and you're gone, don't do that. No, don't. Ooh, this is better.
I got one. I'll take going. So I said, hey, Severed, I got this idea. I often, part of the reason I'll take from stuff that's going on in my life, things like that. I was doing some work and I was up in Montana visiting tribal colleges. So I was on reservations and doing stuff. And I was even able to take some time off and just spend some time up there. So it was bringing all this in. I said, I want to do something with Wendigos. And I wrote a book called Wendigo Road. And I said, here, my pitch is.
Love the cover for that.
My pitch was apocalyptic kind of a thing, and it's a little bit dog soldiers, but a Wendigo instead of a werewolf, and still military.
Yeah.
And it was they're on one side of the mountains, they got to get to the other side, and it's going to be about that journey. And I even it was like I've got this idea of some of the monsters and stuff they'll encounter. So this is all in the head. So you're like, okay, I'll start writing, and it was. I very early in the book, let's say 25% into the book, I'm into it. And what it happens is they come to a town. These soldiers are coming into a town. They're camping out in the town. And I just wrote and then this little boy is there. And it was an absolute nuclear bomb to the entire thing when I realized the adults have all been killed because that's what these Wendigos are doing. They're killing it, and they stored their children. I realized what was supposed to be the story of journeying to get these soldiers from point A to point B is now the journey of the story of how do these soldiers bring in these kids and transport kids through an apocalyptic wasteland while monsters are trying to follow them, and the kids are kids, so they want to go to the bathroom or they want to play or they don't want to be quiet. And now you've got this whole other layer to it that totally obliterated the story that was in my head. But like you're saying, I absolutely knew without a shadow of a doubt it was a much better story transporting the kids to a safe place and much more meaningful. I was like, no, this made so much sense.
Yep.
I knew the guy was a father, the main character. I knew he was a father. So suddenly with the children there, you're like, well, he can't just be like, I'm going to kill these monsters and walk away.
No, now it's the stakes are higher.
Right. The stakes are higher. And so I'm with you. I love that part of the process where it's like, because like I said, you try to do some plotting, you get this stuff, and then something happens, and it can be as much as just something happens on that page, and you go, well, this is done. What I thought I was doing, just take that, throw it out. We're moving on.
That happened to me last night. I was just going through some, you probably have notebooks filled with ideas, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm going through it, and there's one that's always stuck with me that eventually I will write it. But the original, like 2-paragraph, 3-paragraph idea dump, the main characters were part of a motorcycle club. And I came up with this idea a couple of years ago, and I was reading the first part of the idea. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. I get to the second part, I just went, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And I'm reading, I'm like, no, actually, it would be better if it was this, this, and this. And then I just went, okay, so it's this idea and Assault on Precinct 13. That's what it is. And I just wrote it, wrote that, and I was like, okay, now I've got that idea set. Eventually, I'll get to it.
And you've got that stack in the back of your head. I always say it's like they're in the back burner.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, in cooking where it's like, okay, there's the stuff I'm cooking right now. I've got on the front burner. I'm working on it. But then there's some stuff simmering over here, and I might, I'll bring that in later. And that's when I'm writing, it's like there's the book I'm working on right now, right? Sometimes, or not so much now because I pulled back, but it was like sometimes you might have another contract or something where you've said, okay, I'm going to write a story or a book about X. But you're not going to get to it yet. It's just simmering. It's just back there. And then there's other books. I think every writer has probably 10 or 20 books, especially after they've been writing for a while. It's like just these ideas. Some of them are bigger than others, but they're there. And at some point, I find some of them just kind of push their way up to the front and say, no, I'm something that needs to be dealt with now.
Oh, look, I'm looking at my writing board right now, and I've got just like the things I want to write in the near future.
Yeah.
12 novels. Yeah. And one of them is, so Zombie Nazis on a Train. I finished that, and then I'm going into this new book I sold to Severed Press. But then after that, I've got, I know the ones I want to write directly. But then going through the notebooks of ideas, it's like, now that one's still pretty bad. That one's promising. The one I looked at last night, I was like, well, yeah, that's beginning to get a bit more forceful. It's
right.
It's the blessing and the curse of being creative. Too many ideas, not enough time.
Exactly. Now, what you should do, this will be fun, is take a snapshot of it, and then in a couple of years, we'll do another. We'll get back and we'll see how much of that did you accomplish? Did you get through them? Did you? Because I suspect like some of those, it may be as high as half or whatever. It's like, yeah, that never happened. I took it off the board. It's not even worthy of on the board. And then you might be, but no, half of these they're off the board and they're published and out there.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'll be curious about that.
For me, what I do is whenever I like anything on the board, I have the internal thing of, if it's on the board, you're writing it no matter what.
There you go.
So I have that, and
I like that.
And I have this new thing where, I do have this thing of saying, okay, if I start to write something, I need to finish it. And it's more a case of not because I'm going to publish it. If I publish it, great. If I don't publish it, fine. It's more a case of I don't want to have unfinished books because they're ghosts.
Yeah.
Even
I've always said it.
Hmm?
Why do you write?
Okay, anytime anyone asks me that question, this is my go-to answer. Why do you live? Why do you breathe?
See, I like that. Mine, it's always been I'm exercising demons. That's it.
That makes
Right. And my family knows it. If I don't write, if I'm not creative, this will sound a lot more neurotic than I mean it to, but the voices get louder, the stories are going, characters are kind of punching at my head saying, no, we need to be out and we need to do stuff. I will get cranky, I will get moody, things like that happen. As long as I can find it, if I go into like a long period of editing and not writing, the same thing will start to happen. But when I'm writing, yeah, I sleep a lot better. I'm much more congenial because it's all coming out. I'm getting that creative flush, right?
It's not neurotic. I get the same way.
Yeah.
I become cranky. I become insufferable. And it is that thing of, for me, I don't think I'm exercising demons. It's just that thing of I feel creatively constipated.
Yeah. No, it all gets gummed up. It's there, and it's like this.
That's it.
And you're like, ah.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey, you and your creative constipation. That's so. Is there a pill you take for that? Is it just more fiber? What do you use for it?
my diet for honestly, this is 100% true. My diet for getting rid of the creative constipation, it's just what for me is watching movies. I start watching movies and my mind begins to tick over, and I get that urge to, okay, if these guys are creating stuff and putting it out in the world, so I can do it too.
Right.
It's also talking to other authors. If like when I was talking to Lee, she said some things, and in my head, some stories I was having trouble with just went. And that was it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, talking to other authors, whether it's like this or through Facebook or however it is, it does help, because I kind of go, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing the constipation.
You are not. And you brought, I wanted to say something because I was thinking of this earlier. I've got this on my phone. So you talking movies. So like I said, over the pandemic, I've been reading a lot more. And I found this interesting. It was just, I take notes. Not so much notes, but it was one of the things that was striking me in a lot of the books I was reading was the vocabulary, right? So I'm reading this stuff, and certain books just would have words that I'm like, I was reading Gideon the Ninth, and it has a whole vocabulary set based around death and biology. So I was looking at Fug and Moldering and Gimlet. I'm reading these Simulacrum, because Simulacrum I know, but it was like Cenobite because it's also kind of priests and stuff. And as I was going through this, more and more books, I was enjoying reading the books, but I was also enjoying picking up this vocabulary that the books were giving me. I was reading Tanishi Coates' The Water Dancer, and there was that one, and there was also what was the other book I was reading? The News of the World, which recently was put into a movie. And in both of those, they have a very specific vocabulary that really sucks you into the story. And so I'm really vibing on this, and I'm really enjoying this. And I'm just going, wow. And book after book, and you're seeing the value of the vocabulary, right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean big words, does it? It's just the vocabulary that they use and the words that they're choosing. And I was really getting into it. So I'm getting this habit. And then it was, I want to pull this one up. Where was it? I pulled up one of the last books I was reading was Stephen King's If It Bleeds. And I'm not going into this looking for the vocabulary. I'm not. And in each one, I'm not looking for it. Sometimes it's like, oh, here's this book. It might only have 2 or 3 words in it, because I'm not looking for it. But some of them really kind of stand up and punch me in the face and say, here's the vocabulary. This one, it was so different because there was almost no vocabulary in it. I think I picked up Farrago, which I can't even remember what that was. That's the only real vocabulary in his whole, and it's a collection of short stories. But what I picked up on was stuff he said. He used shit the bed. He talked about California peeling off. He's talking about the apocalypse in California just going away. He said it peeled off the U.S. like wallpaper, right?
Nice.
See, and the path to hell is paved with faulty assumptions. He talks about a man with a driftwood hand because of the arthritis, so he talks about his driftwood hand. And it was just, I'm seeing all this stuff, and it was so different from all these other things. And some of these books I was reading, I'm like, no, these are really well acclaimed books. His is a really popular book. I don't, aside from winning the genre awards that it will, right, kind of a thing, a lot of critics would say, but that's not good writing, right? There's always that criticism.
Yeah.
But what was really striking to me, man, was just how different that book was from all the other books that I was reading and how much it stood out. And I was really taken aback by it. I was like, well, that's really interesting.
That makes sense because, I mean, I've read books where the language is flowery and they use the big words, and you kind of go, "Oh, this is beautiful," and I've never picked it up again. And then then you pick up the book where it has maybe it is a very simpler way of writing, let's say, but it has some amazing description, or there are certain passages where you just sit there reading and go, "I can see it crystal clear. That's great," and you go back to it. It's
right.
The exact same thing as what you said earlier. Those critically acclaimed movies that are masterpieces that you'll watch once and never go back. And then you'll say go to Constantine and just constantly go back to it and go back to it and go back to it. Having a highfalutin vocabulary or writing in a very, very hoity-toity manner doesn't mean you're going to be popular. Yes, you'll win awards, you will be called literary, but it will not guarantee average Joe will pick you up, read you, and then at the next bar with his mates, he'll go, "You've got to read this book, man. He talks about a guy with a driftwood hand. It's just like drunken Larry over there." That's
right. And that's why I'm with you. It's like it's interesting that in its own way, I'm reading, and it really struck with Stephen King. He's probably the most popular writer of the last 50 years, right?
Bastard.
Popularity, most people reading the books, whether they agree if they're good or not, I don't know, but popular. And it was just one of those going through these, I'm reading these books, and many of them I'm going, these are great books. And like you're saying, it was like his vocabulary was very different. The way his emphasis was, and I know he has said it many times, that whole never use a $10 word when a $1 word will suffice kind of a thing. And I'm probably getting that wrong, his exact wording, but it's that whole don't use like you were saying, no fancy words if you've got an ordinary word that fits. There's no point to it. But I also, it's like, it was not just that, but it's that dialogue and the very specific image that he is pulling with it, so even if it's there's his voice that's coming through. I guess that's when by the dialogue, his voice that comes through when he's saying a driftwood hand. I hadn't heard anything like that in the other books. The others had, like I said, great description, really put you in its place. But as soon as he said this man had a driftwood hand, I knew exactly what that was.
And that's the thing. I mean, I'll admit it. I don't write in a very literary manner. My writing is very much, it's a gut punch. I it's just very bare bones. I'll then spend more time on, I don't describe my characters completely because I don't care. I'll give 1 or 2 points, and then I'm very big on actions speak louder. So whatever their actions tell you who they are, the way they talk, they tell you who you are. I will then use the power of description, if you want to sound like a wanker, to and apparently I am. I use that
No, and what I was saying is I like what you're saying. It's that whole, you leave the kind of the blank for them, let the reader fill in the blanks for it. The more detailed about the person, that can be good, but it allows less room for them to fill in the blanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I characters, as fill in the blank. The only time I don't, I will go all in with my description. It's not even locations. I'll give you enough description to go, okay, this is where things are laid out. That way, when it comes to action, no confusion.
Right.
And that was something last year when we first started this.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about the idea of the flow of action with you, which some authors struggle with. But we can save that for part 2.
Yeah.
You're going to be back on. You will be back on. That's the thing.
It's too fun, man. I can't resist.
No. I'm having a blast too. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have you back on.
Sure, man.
But when I go for all-out description, it's during action. It's during violence. It's during the part where I want my reader to kind of go, oh, geez, oh, that's horrible. Like, for example, White Dress, the main character sacrifices a baby. You get to experience this not only from his point of view, but from the baby's point of view.
Yeah.
You get to, I go into detail about him having trouble cracking open the ribs to get to the heart.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. That's when I go all out for the description. Everything else is window dressing for me.
And I think that's it. It's, you strike at the heart of, no pun intended, but it's, where do you want them focused, right? Yeah. And do you want them focused on the dirt road they were just walking down or something? Or do you want them focused on what's happening in the dirt road? Whether it's, if it's slaughtering a baby, and because I don't know if that's what it was, but it was, if it's on a dirt road, you can go into a lot of description on dirt road, but is that going to move your story? Is that going to give the readers something that they need that they didn't have before?
Exactly. And for me, my entire thing is everything that happens in a chapter or in a scene, it has to push the story forward. If it's not, like the Valley of Bicho, I wrote 50,000 words and I scrapped all of it because it was shit. And the reason it was shit was because I had this whole a fourth act basically where they discovered a temple, and it was like, it just went into Lovecraftian kind of weirdness and all this stuff. And I wrote all this. I just went, this has no place. The story is not this. The story is this, and the story is really much simpler.
Yeah.
Scrapped.
You got to focus on that. With Severed, I published Backpacking with Dinosaurs, and it was hard to come up with a title, but kind of like you're saying with the whole Nazi, was it not Nazi zombie train?
Zombie Nazis on a train. Come on.
Zombie Nazis on zombie Nazis. In that one, it was, I kept trying to come up with some really nice, profound way to do this. And I kept coming back to just saying, well, it's about people backpacking and there's dinosaurs. So it's Backpacking with Dinosaurs. And that was it.
Yeah.
And so you wrote it through. So you're like, okay, I got that. But once I got to the end, it was actually, I had this moment where it was saying, and I'm going to butcher my own line here, but it was at the end that it's the characters saying, coming to that realization that dinosaurs had returned to the earth, but they were not the most horrible creatures on the earth.
Yep.
And that then was like, I went, whoa. And to me, it was like one of the best endings I've written, where I was like, oh, this is it. I love it. I got to go back into this book and make sure it feeds that line. I want to make sure that ends with the exclamation point I want it to end. That was it. I finished, the editing process is getting you going there. That's you realize where those exclamation points are in the book. I want it on this line, this character in this moment. I don't know about you, again, talking cinematically, sometimes it's like, there's an image in my head that I want the reader to see as well. How do I get that image right there? In that one, I think there's one where it's like a T-Rex and woman with an axe burying it in the T-Rex skull or something. It was like, I wanted that image so badly to be there. That doesn't mean the rest of the book doesn't have images I don't like, but I wanted that image. And so when you're sitting there saying, again, that whole, is it the dirt road or is it the action on the dirt road? You might have, here's the dirt road we were walking on, but when it comes to that T-Rex and that axe moment,
Yep.
I want you, that's where a lot, that might have the whole boom. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's long. Sometimes it needs to be long, sometimes it doesn't, but I want to make sure it's got that, it's going to hit it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I do want to keep going, but I'm pretty sure if we do, it's going to be the length of the Snyder Cut, and I'm pretty sure no one is going to sit through that. So I ask everyone this. A newbie comes up to you and says, "I want to publish. I want to be a writer." Doug, you have inspired me.
Awesome, great. My day is made.
Okay. What's the one piece of advice you give them?
The one, that's a good question, Mike, because it seems like there's a whole, I can talk forever about it and say, there's all this. Let me give you my one piece of advice, and I'm going to give it to you for the next hour and give you 20 different pieces of advice. And I don't want to say something cliche like right from the heart or the first draft is for you. For me, it's always been about trying to, I'll say it's a couple things. What is that experience I want to share? What is that image I want to share? And try to, capture that. When it was with the zombie dogs, there's this story in the back of my head. The real quick story is that we were doing search training exercises, right, for search and rescue. And I've told this before so we were doing this, and there's 3 different kinds of search and rescue dogs. Trailing dogs, which are like find Timmy at the well, right? So you lay a trail and they go find the person. There's area search dogs, which are like, imagine a tornado's hit a trailer park. We know there's a bunch of people under the trailers. We need to find them all, not necessarily any one person, but go out and find them. And then there's the cadaver dogs, which is what I was working with. And so we were trying to find a new way. A lot of training is, how do I trick the dog? How do I find a way to make this more difficult? Stuff. You're constantly trying to find that edge on the dog. And so one of the things I was trying to look for something new, and I went, well, with the trailing dogs, they find what they do is they take the person, person walks through the forest and goes to the end, and then cross a stream or whatever, and that's what they're gonna do. I was like, what if the dead stuff we've got did the same, walked through the forest and went there? And I went, but that's impossible. That wouldn't happen unless it's a zombie, and that's where it became. And so I would tell them, whatever that experience is in life that causes you to funnel all this, or if it's that, like we've just been talking about, the image in your head, or whatever that is, stick to that. Everything else, supports it, but stick to that image. And as long as you do that, you'll be successful. And what I mean successful is, I'm not saying you're going to be a millionaire, or that you're going to win a Nobel Prize or anything, but you're going to put out something that you're going to be happy with and you can be proud of. It's something that you want out there. Now, there's that whole other side of, do you publish with a small press? Do you try to get your agent? Do you self? There's so many things, but starts with that.
Yep. What
is that nugget? What is that impact, image, statement, experience? What is that thing that has to get out? And it's, every book is like that. Every book has it. I've said with Severed Press, sometimes the stuff that I would write for them, it isn't exactly the first thing on my head. In my head, it isn't like the number one, but there was usually something in the book that I wanted to get out.
Yeah.
That I had to put, like I said, writing Wendigo, I was like, man, I really want for the Wendigos, I want these monsters, I want to show this whole thing. I wanted to bring that experience of being in Montana and what that would be like. That's what I wanted to get on the paper and have out for everybody to see. The rest of it, I can work with? Is it a Wendigo? Is it Bigfoot? Is it, is it a dinosaur? Is it a kaiju? As someone who enjoys them all, I those are things I can work with. But that connection, that moment, that's what I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. That's really
Yeah.
good. And
It's my piece of, I don't know if it's a good piece of advice. It's
no,
my piece of advice.
no, it is.
You
It is.
stick with that point.
Honestly, it is a good piece of advice. It is. It is good. I wouldn't be like everyone. Whenever I've asked this question over all the past interviews I've done, the answer is always different, and none of it has been cliched, which is great. And it's all different because whoever's giving the advice, they're coming from their own experience. So of course, this one piece of advice is going to be completely based on where they've come from. So it makes perfect sense. After our brilliant conversation, it makes perfect sense. That's the advice you would say. And I would love to have you come back on and we just dissect Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I'm down, man. It's talking about like I want to go back and rewatch it again. I need to find another 4 hours in my life for it because there's all the other stuff that he's done as well. And
rewatch Sucker Punch. Watch Sucker Punch with the idea that it's his reaction to fandom. Do that.
Right.
Do that first.
Yeah. It's like when God, see, I'm gonna go off on it. I'll try not to, but it's the Joker movie that came out, and they were saying, well, you can interpret this. One of the interpretations of this is that, and I am completely drawing a blank right now on the director's name, but it's the guy who did The Hangover.
Yeah, Todd Phillips.
What is it? Todd Phillips. And they're saying it's that idea of, and you talk cancel culture and some of this stuff, but that whole idea of what is a joke and what is it to mean to be a comedian. And at the time, there were a lot of comedians, if I remember correctly, at that time who were getting in trouble for bits that they had done 10 years, in their past. And so he was feeling into that. And so if you look at that as kind of a diatribe or whatever, him trying to make a point of the purpose of comedy and what exactly is comedy, it's a very different, like I said, it's a very different movie. It's like you're saying, is it a reaction to the fan? Well, now that's one of the great things is now we can go back and rewatch and go, oh, I see something totally different here. Yeah.
I mean, if I ever get the chance to, sit down with Zack Snyder for like an hour, even 30 minutes, that's one thing. Sucker Punch, I read it like this. Is that, and he said, no, it's just about good-looking girls fighting these things. I'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. I can get behind that.
Mm-hmm. But there's always that. And I'll say this as you, as someone who's written, I think someone could always come out and say, you wrote The Valley Beacher, you wrote that because of this. You were reacting to this, either in your life, in the world. That was it. And it may be true, and it may not be quite so true, but it kind of becomes part of the story. It's part of the truth of it, right?
And honestly, if anyone says that, if that ever happens, and I honestly think it could be a very big if, if anyone says that to me, I'm going to say, look, maybe, I don't really know, but if you saw that, great.
It's not a big if. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm waiting for the movie.
Oh, look, but that's the thing. For me, if anyone says I got this from your story, is that what you intended? I'm not gonna say, well, no, this is what I intended. I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
If that's what you found, great. I didn't honestly, I wasn't trying to say that, but if you saw that, good for you.
Yeah, that's a perfectly valid. You're reading that. This is the way it is.
Unless they read something in it like racism, misogyny, anything like that. If they read anything like that, then I'm going to go.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Never buy my books again.
Yeah.
In fact, how did you get into my room?
Right. So the Nazis on the train. That's because no. Stop you there.
No. Literally. That is just. I wanted to write a book where I had my main characters go to town on a bunch of Nazis, and I like zombies. Do not read anything else. Do not read anything else into it.
Sometimes like that's it. It's a pretty low level.
I don't work subtext.
Right. That's for other people.
Yeah,
Let them
yeah,
have a subsection like, I write at this level. This is what I give you.
yeah.
But I think that's part. I would say you and me. It's like we're we're working writers and or maybe working small press novelists. I'm not sure exactly how you'd put it, but it's
Working
what I
writers.
mean. Is we're writers, but we all because the way the world is, this is not our main job. This is not our 9 to 5.
Yeah,
I think all of us would trade it in if we could.
that's my plan.
But yeah, and so it's like, so when we're doing, it's not a hobby. There's something in it, but but we're working. We're definitely working that and always trying to do it better.
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah. Every like that's the thing. You asked what's the book I think is my worst. I instantly gave an answer.
Yeah.
I know that each book I do improve, and it might not be like a massive improvement. It could be maybe the way I describe certain things has improved, or maybe my plotting has gotten tighter, or maybe my characters are more realistic. It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
like like from this to oh yeah. It's not that. It's as long as I improve. If I feel like I've improved in one way, great. And every book I have, because every book I get better at doing this.
Right. And that's always like you're always improving, you're always working it. What what would you improve? What is your thing that you think you need to improve the most? I feel like I'm calling you out on like, well, what do you do bad? But I'm not as
No,
like,
no,
because
no.
I think we all like there's something that we all want to do better, or we all wish we could. I tell you, for me, like again with the stuff I've read, I wish I was much better able at uh, prioritizing an action over a description. Sometimes I do want to go down like a description of the monster or a description of the place or something you're going, and I have to stand away from it. I'll also say I've been called out as one of my biggest things that I do absolutely wrong every time. And I've been fortunate that editors catch it, so hopefully it's not too much in the books. Is that I will enjoy a word, and so
Yes.
I will use said word 2 or 3 times in a paragraph, or maybe again in the paragraph after that, and maybe 5 or 10 times on a page.
Yep.
That'll be presented to me that it's like, so that word was apparently in your head right there. Oops.
It happens to all of
I'd
us.
like to get to the point where I could write without having that, and it changes.
Yeah.
Page 20, it's this word. Page 120,
Yep.
it's a different word.
And
But it becomes very obvious when somebody points it out.
oh yeah, I get that. I think there are two things I would improve. The first, I'm afraid of writing long books.
Really?
Yeah.
Afraid. Yeah.
The longest book I've written was my very first book, which was about 63,000 words. Everything after that has been below.
Shorter and shorter.
Like Kaiju World is 30 odd thousand. Valley of Beach is 41,000. The
Right.
Book of Spite is 40,000 words. Flicker, which was my first self-published novel, that's 50,000 words. So I have this. I am afraid of writing long works because I have that thing of I don't want to waste people's time. I don't want them to get bored with my
Right.
stuff. But Zombie Universe on Train, that one's probably going to be more like 70,000 words. So I'm kind of breaking
Yeah.
it. The other
Good.
thing, the other thing I need to improve, and it's not related to the craft. The funny thing is, it's more about I need to be more comfortable with selling. I need to be more comfortable with talking about my books, and not in the way of because for me, if people want to talk to me about my books, like I can tear my books apart completely.
Yeah.
And I'm very much.
But can you sell it as a good piece of literature that somebody should pick up, pay a couple of bucks for?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny when for example, when I've talked to people about Valley of Beach, I say, yes, Predator, but just with giant insects, people just go, that sounds cool. Really? Okay. Kaiju World, oh yeah, I wrote a kaiju book. Really? What's it about? There's Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, it's Godzilla. Really? I'm like,
yeah.
Are they hearing the exact same thing I'm saying?
They are, and it's good, and that's because I totally sympathize with that. I think there's this idea that you sell a book, you hand it off to a publisher, the publisher does all of the advertising and everything else, and you just sit back and collect money. You're like, money, 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 send me the green. And it's like, no, it's like, again, working writers like you and me, it's like there's this whole side of how do you sell a book. And I know there are people who, other writers like us, who say, if I don't think the book's going to sell, if I can't see that angle, then I'm not going to do it. Right. But to me, it's not to criticize that. It's to say there's a whole salesmanship side that is just, this was never in the manual.
Yeah.
Nobody said, oh, by the way, you really should learn how to sell a book in addition to writing one. And I'm much better about selling a book now, usually because I've made about 100 mistakes on selling books and screwed it up and, lost money there or shouldn't have done that. And,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, I read there's a quote I read, and to me it just kind of started to make selling easier. And it's this: selling is the transference of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I kind of went, well, yeah, I'm enthusiastic for my books, and I know people are enthusiastic when I tell them about it. They get enthusiastic. So what's holding me back? That's the thing I need to. Those are the two things I need to work on. One, it is craft. One, it is more just my own. Just getting out of my own way.
Right. And so, because I know we do need to end this, but
okay.
I want to say, because there's this other thing I want to bring up. I was like, and it's, again, being a working writer, you run in this, you can spend an entire year, craft a great 80,000, 100,000 word book, sell it to a small press, which will have limited resources to be able to advertise, sell the book. Right. And it really is kind of and if it works and it's great. But because it's a small press, they're not going to be able to say, look, Richard, this is the plan. This is how we're going to get your book out. This is what it's going to do. It's often going to be, well, whatever you're going to do is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And if it hits with readers, great. But if it doesn't hit with readers, you've just spent an entire year writing something that's just, going up and up that, and not in the good way, going up at that Amazon rank. No, not 500,000, up in the millions. And you're like, oh, nobody's buying this book. And why did I do this?
Yeah.
If you do a shorter one, and that was part of, like, when I did this whole, what I call the new profanity series with the Backpacking with Dinosaurs, mountain climbing, stuff like that, is because real quick, I could be like, okay, this is the scenario, this is where it is, and I could see A to B.
Yep.
And I wasn't going to write them as long. They're none of them more than 40, 50,000 words. They're all, for me, I'm like, they're relatively quick, right? Quick, easy. And the thing was, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, okay, well, I didn't spend an entire year working on it. And I do think that's part of the being a working writer in small press, is that how much time are you going to spend on something that, let's all be honest, we may not be able to sell to anyone?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I on my laptop, I've got a folder where all my, I'm got all my drafts in, and I just have it. There are two labels: one shots and shorts. And that, for me, everything starts out as a one shot, and I'm stealing that from comics.
Yeah.
Same thing. A one shot in a comic is a very short. You get in, you get out. That's it. And if it hits, then they can make it into a series.
And then you can spend a little more time, make it a little bigger. And like I said, it's once you have the series, now you can put a little more time and thought into it.
Exactly. Yeah. And
but
you need to
that's where it's. So that's where it's kind of going back. It's like the exercise is, what is the sequel, right?
Yeah.
So that you always know what the sequel is, because, like I said, you're kind of doing a one shot with these. You say, well, I'm going to fire off this book and I'm going to send it out to whatever this press is. And if it works, I've got a sequel idea. I'm a writer. I got a sequel idea, something and again, this is that whole something I would like to pursue on it. And if it doesn't, I can walk away from it,
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I learned that the hard way, because, as I said, my very first book, I was arrogant enough to already start writing a sequel because I thought it was going to be a bestseller.
Yeah. And it does happen. There are people who write it. They put their first book out there. They get it out there, and it is a huge hit.
Oh yeah.
I think what the problem is for, I'm not gonna say the problem. The thing that should be trained in to aspiring writers, people who are kids in high school and college and stuff, is, and I think it's you and I coming in when we did. It's like Kindle is new.
Mhm.
E-publishing, self-publishing through this stuff was new. Small presses are much more able to survive, I think, right now because of this world, this digital world that exists. That's just my opinion. But it's like, so how do you tell that beginning author, it's like, be ready to give something, but also be ready that you can turn something in and it not turn into anything. We can't all be the next whoever, right?
Yep. But no,
Usually the next Stephen King,
yeah.
James Patrick. We can't all be that. But I do think there's a lot more room for writers who are not that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There was a time where we wouldn't have gotten a book sold.
oh no. And,
We couldn't have gotten these ideas out.
exactly. And when I first started, I kind of gave myself the thing of, okay, I want to be the next Jake Bible. I wanted to publish,
Yeah.
50 books in 5 years. I wanted to just be that guy. And I when I talked to Jake, I even told him that point blank, and he kind of went, "How'd that go for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, failed it completely." And he says, "Yeah, that's the thing. What you need to do is don't be the next Stephen King. Be the next you."
Right.
And that's it. I mean, my voice has changed since I first started writing. It's become when I first, the first couple of things I wrote, it was very much in a very, I don't know, like hard boiled, pulpy kind of style.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah.
Now, and I mean, anyone who's watching this, if you've read my books and you totally disagree with me, please say so in the comics. So in the comments, so I know why. Now I think is a much more relaxed, more fluid, definitely more cinematic style,
Right.
which I'm fine with. I got no problem with
But
that.
it's you getting your voice.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And there are those sort of assholes who come in swinging already with their voices, and you're like, "Oh, you bastard!" And then you find out, wait, they've written 10 books and they never published them. And you're like,
And then yeah. So people, it's just like, not everybody gets that, but I do think in the world we live, I think there's a lot more of you and me out there than we think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, a lot of creative minds. We can publish, we can find audiences, we can do this stuff. Real briefly, I had this book, Terrible Lizard, very different from a lot of the other books I've written.
Yeah.
And one of the things was interesting, I wrote it. I sent it out to a couple of agents because I did really like it, and I thought there's something sellable here.
Yep.
And all the agents were like, "You're wrong. There really isn't. It's not. No, we're really not interested." And by that time, I was well versed in e-publishing and self-publishing, and I said, "Well, I already knew that would be a backdoor. I'd be like, Plan B."
Yeah.
It's like, if that doesn't work, I'm going to go with this one on Plan B. And I put it out there, and I've always said, I often ask, "What's your best book?" I'm like, "Oh, it's that one."
Yeah.
Hands down, it's that one. It just clicked. I wrote it in like a month.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
Yeah, most are not like that. Most are much more of a struggle and a pain. That one, I wrote it in like a month. I think I did like one quick edit of it and had somebody else read over it for editing. I had a good editor, and he read it and then published it. It was very quick from conception to actual out there.
And
And it's one of those, for me, it's, if it's not my best reviewed book, it's one of them.
Yep.
It's right up
you.
there.
Yeah.
And it's the people who read it love it and adore it. And yeah, and every agent said, "No, that one's a horrible book. Won't consider it, not interested."
Yeah. And that proves that nobody in this industry knows what the hell they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. So, Doug, thank you so much for being on. We're definitely going to have you come back. Definitely.
Sure, man.
And we can do
Sure.
it, and we can go for the, we can beat the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, yeah, I'm looking at my clock and going,
Yeah.
we're pushing, dude. But it's been a blast, and I've had a great time. I was not saying, I was like, I this went longer than I expected, but I think you and I we had some really cool conversations,
Yeah.
and I really dug jumping into some of these things and just talking about them.
Oh no, it was fantastic, man, and I am more than happy to have you come on. If you got a new book you want to plug, I'm happy to have you on for that. If you just want to come on for another,
Yeah, we talk some more Snyder Cut or whatever.
Winding road.
We really haven't touched Disney or Netflix or anything like that.
So tune in for part 2, where we go after Marvel, we go after Disney, and we kill any chance of us making it big in Hollywood.
It'll never happen.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
An absolute pleasure.
And once again, a big thank you to Doug Goodman for coming on today. You can find links to Doug's work below in the description. Until next time, boys and ghouls, stay spooky.